Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the May Historic Preservation Commission meeting, and thank you for joining us today. My name is John Milner. I'm chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Typical of HP, we have a very full agenda today, and it's our goal to get everyone out of here on time. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during the meeting. This ensures commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you are called upon. When you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for the records. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov site. If you're following online, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought handouts or examples with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept and review. I repeat, we cannot accept new information to review in today's meeting that was not submitted previously. Keith, will you please call roll for us?
Milner.
Present.
Jordan.
Present.
Gaines.
Present.
Orr.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the procedure section. There are 2 items we like to note specifically regarding this meeting process. These items involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. On certificates of appropriateness, after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail their certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. As far as appeal to Board of Adjustments, any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with the clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, any news from the Office of Historic Preservation?
The only thing I wanted to note, and we have an action item on the agenda under other business for this, but every year we apply for a certified local governments grant that comes through the State Historic Preservation Office and is funded by the National Historic Preservation, or the Historic Preservation Fund, which is within the Department of the Interior. I've been informed that the proposed budget eliminates all funding for the State Historic Preservation offices nationwide and dramatically cuts the Historic Preservation Fund. So we are going forward with the process to apply for this grant for next year, but that grant funding may no longer exist. So just wanted to make folks aware that that's happening.
Katie, thank you. Next, we'll go to acceptance of minutes. Have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the April 2nd meeting? And if so, do we have a motion to accept or modify?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, we've got a motion to accept the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, the minutes have been accepted. Katie, anything from code enforcement?
Nothing in particular to call out. As always, if you see items on that code enforcement report and have questions, feel free to reach out to HP staff or Action Center staff for more information.
Okay, do we have any continuance announcements or requests?
We have no continuance announcements or requests on the agenda, and we have not received any new requests for this meeting.
Okay, public hearings, anything on dilapidated structures?
We have no dilapidated structures this month and no National Register nominations.
Okay, we have one item on the consent docket.
This is an item recommended for approval with no conditions. You all are welcome to pull that and discuss, or you can take a motion and vote to approve the consent docket.
Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion on this one item on the consent docket?
I'll motion to approve the consent docket.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a
Second.
second? We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
And I'm still logging in.
Okay, the item on the consent docket has been approved. If you were on the consent docket, congratulations, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting or head out. That will take us to items for an individual consideration. We have 11. We'll get started with HPCA-25-00003 at 611 Northwest 22nd Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
You all have seen this previously. This is a proposal to construct a carport in the rear yard of this property, and then a new item that has been added is the construction of a deck. We have recommended approval of the deck. It meets all relevant guidelines. We've recommended approval with conditions for the carport. It has been revised to a more appropriate design and compatible materials, but the height appears to be in excess of what is typical for when we've approved an accessory structure of this sort. So the recommended condition is to reduce the height of the carport by 2 feet. I'm not sure, I don't believe the applicant is present for this one, and we have not heard from them regarding whether or not they would agree to that condition.
Okay, commissioners, what questions do you have on this one? I do want to be clear, though, the applicant is not present, correct? Okay. The applicant
Sorry,
is not present.
what's the, okay.
I mean, I think if they're not present, we have agreed upon conditions we need to request, then I think we have to continue it. There's just no, I mean,
Yeah, you all may, I mean, if you think 14 feet is acceptable, you could
No.
approve it without the condition. But we thought that was a little tall for a carport. It's at the peak of the gable is 14 feet.
Yeah, I think we continue. Is there anybody here else that wants to speak on it? If they've-
Yeah, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
From the staff?
There being none.
So I was going to say, we are out of continuances, however, with the carport, they've already used their 2 continuances.
then
We can
I think
approve
we
it.
can approve the deck and deny the carport.
Or approve it the carport with the height, and if they don't like it,
We do have the option to move it to the end of the docket to give them time to show up.
I don't believe they've attended,
they
I
have
don't think they have either.
so I don't think
Okay.
it's likely that they'll
Okay.
attend.
The applicant did reach out and ask if they were required to show up. I told them that it was not a rule, but it was strongly recommended, especially if the commission had questions.
Okay.
I just think if agreed upon conditions imply that they are here and they've agreed, so I think we can't really move forward with that language
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah.
So, I would be inclined to just separate them out and approve one and deny one unless anybody else feels really strongly about it.
on board.
Okay. Then regarding HPCA 25-00003, I would make a motion to deny item 3 with prejudice.
Okay. We have a motion to deny item 3. Do we have a second?
I said with. Yeah, I'm good. Okay.
Which just means that if they come back.
It can't be 14
It
feet.
can't be 14 feet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Do we have a second on it? We
Yep,
do have a
Patrick
second.
did.
Okay. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been denied.
Okay.
Okay, we've got another motion.
Regarding HPCA 25-00003, I would motion to approve item 4 with the conditions noted in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve with conditions. Do we have a second?
Oh, wait, sorry, I think I said item 4 twice. Can you please confirm?
I think you said 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So with the findings and conditions?
Well, hang on, 3 was supposed to be denied and.
Right.
Okay. At the top, I just want to compare this really quickly. Okay. Yes, so motion to approve item 4 with the condition noted in the staff report. I think I was just confused because there is a condition listed under item 4 that says, under the item regarding the deck, that says the applicant should reduce the height of the proposed carport by 2 feet. And it just is reading under
Yes, they were grouped together
Right.
because it was a recommendation to approve
Right,
both
so I
of
was
them.
confused there
yeah,
for a second.
yeah. And you want the findings and the conditions
Yes.
in the staff report? Okay.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been approved. Okay, next up, we've got HPCA-25-00015 at 536 Northwest 37th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, by Logan Roundtree, TNT, for Doss Kimball, Golden Dawn Properties, LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to replace cloth front porch canopy with wood and shingle canopy elective. The commission has seen this twice previously, so they are out of continuances. It has to either be approved or denied today. The applicant has been working with staff and researching to come up with an appropriate alternative for a replacement of the cloth canopy that's there that is deteriorated. We've given you a recommendation, we've given you alternatives here, one for approval and one for denial. We are always very protective of the primary facade of historic structures and typically don't support changes to a front entrance, a front porch, where we don't have historic documentation of what that condition was previously. We have also provided findings if you felt that what is proposed is modest enough, reversible enough, and accommodates, the function and livability of this dwelling.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present? The applicant is not present. Commissioners, what questions do you have or comments on this item?
I don't have any that I haven't asked in the past.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? I'm going to take that as a no.
You said that they're out of continuances, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would be inclined to approve it. Like I said, we have no idea what the original condition is, and what they've submitted is much closer to anything that than what they had come with originally. I would be okay to approve it, but
I just feel like I'm missing a better visual on it. It feels kind of lacking, but
I mean, did you see is it page 5 of the attachment? That kind of shows their drawing section, what they were referencing.
I think it's very minimal.
Yeah, I think having any kind of covered entry is important for the front entry of a house. Like the report said, it increases livability. It helps keep water intrusion out, which does further damage structure. So I would be okay to approve this, especially because they are out of continuances. It's such a small thing that they're trying to do, and it'd be a bummer for them to have to restart the entire application process over.
I also could be on board with this, especially because while there is no information about the historic condition of the way the entry was, it just feels like it wasn't that.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna make a motion to approve item 2 on HPCA 25-00015 with the specific findings noted in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been approved. Next, we have HPCA-25-00021 at 104 Northwest 20th Street.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Chris Kreger, Trillium Holdings LLC, for certificate of appropriateness to 11 install fence selective, 12 reinstall window with appropriate trim at northwest gable end required, 13, revised number of windows on the east elevation of the addition required. 14, revised number of windows at west elevation of addition required. And 15, revised number of windows on the south rear elevation of the addition required. The commission has seen this numerous times. This most recent round, the commission has seen it a couple of times since the previous CA had expired. This was a previously approved addition remodel. Some things were done not in keeping with what had been approved previously. The applicant met with staff and also with representatives from the Heritage Hills East neighborhood to walk the property, talk about what had been done so far, what needed to still be addressed. We were able to administratively approve a number of items to clean up the record for this application, and these are the remaining ones that need to be approved by the commission. So we have recommended approval with conditions and unique circumstances, and that condition is just that the bathroom window must be installed as is noted in their application.
Katie, thank you. Is the applicant present? Okay. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Chris Krager, 104 Northwest 20th.
Okay.
Are you in agreement with the specific findings and unique circumstances in the staff report?
Yes, ma'am. The only question that I did have, I mean, obviously, I think the way that it is submitted now is to have 3 windows on the east side. Originally, there were 2 sets of separate windows. And so what I have submitted is to put 3 windows all together above that. I guess it is gonna be the kitchen sink. And so I just wanted to clarify that that is what I can do. And that's what I think staff and I discussed, and that's what we was recommended. I just want to make sure that that is going to work.
Let me just read the language in here because I do
Yes,
want to
please.
make sure you're right as well.
Because I
Yeah.
submitted a couple options.
They don't have any agreed upon circumstances here, or, sorry, it's been a day. They only have unique circumstances noted here, so that is reflected in this approval.
Okay. So do you want me to use the pictures that are above and I can explain, or what would be the best way to do that?
No, I mean,
Because I
think we're
submitted all that
pretty clear on it.
documentation.
Yeah.
I think what we've worked with staff on, we are in agreement with.
Okay, I just submitted 2 different options, and so I just want to make sure which option I do, because I just don't want to I don't want this to all go again and do, because the previous guys, they did what they said they were going to do, but they didn't do anything that they told you they were going to do. And then I had to sue them to take possession, and now I'm caught in the middle of it. And I just want to do the right thing, and I just want to be done. So I just don't want to do it twice.
Oh.
I'm only seeing proposed as the one bank of 3 windows in my packet, but
Perfect.
if there is something,
That
That's
is my
previously
ideal
proposed.
proposal.
The other option, the 2,
that was
I'm-
previously proposed. I
Yeah,
think.
the previously proposed was 2 sets of double windows, and they
Yeah.
were separated.
Yeah.
And what I had proposed was bringing that together and putting 3 windows in the middle. That looked like it fits more historically, but it also fits more with the design that is currently planned for the structure. And so I think this is going to actually be a better complement to the structure and the neighborhood, and it's going to work better with what I already have planned. And so if you're not opposed to it, that's what I would,
No, I mean, per the language in our packet, that's what's being approved today.
perfect. And the only thing that they added in that packet was to put the window in the bathroom, is the way I understood it.
Right.
Yes, so the only agreed upon condition noted here is that the previously approved bathroom window must be installed and that the replication of the bathroom window at the south end of the west wall could further support the rhythm of the wall to window ratios at the addition. So it's just the only agreed upon condition that is different from what you've proposed here is that bathroom window.
Perfect.
So
That
if you're
sounds
good
great.
with that, I think we're good with that.
I'm totally good with it.
Okay.
let me ask, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, thank you.
There were some comments submitted.
From the neighborhood.
Who
And they were-
do support staff's
Yeah,
approval.
they were supportive, yeah.
Appreciate your work on this. I know it's hard.
Okay, anything else?
No, you better go while we're ready to motion.
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 25-00021, items 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 with specific findings and conditions and unique circumstances noted in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve and a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been approved. Thank you. Next up, we have HPCA-25-00027 at 916 Northwest 38th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
Okay. We have numerous additions and garages, though I will try to keep all of them straight as we go through each of these. This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Michael Purcell for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, remove shutters from front first floor elective, 2, remove paint and from stone veneer elective, 3, construct addition to rear of dwelling elective, 4, construct porches at addition elective, and 5, construct second story addition at garage. So we have recommended approval for removal of the shutters. You have a recommendation to continue the removal of the paint from the stone veneer. What is proposed there is sandblasting, which the guidelines do not support. There are some less abrasive, less aggressive methods for removing paint that can sometimes be tested and found successful, but we're generally not going to recommend approval of sandblasting as a paint removal method. And then we have recommended continuance on both the addition and the garage items related to, let me scroll to what the primary items were noted here. The garage is described as construction of a second-story addition at the existing garage, but it also enlarges the garage, makes other design changes to the garage that almost need to be addressed more like a new build garage. We did not have documentation of abutting two-story garages to support going from a one-story to a two-story in this instance. And then at the addition, it appeared to be over the square footage that is supported by the guidelines and to perhaps not be adequately differentiated from the historic structure.
Okay, Katie, thank you. The applicant is present.
Hello, everyone. Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects at 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Okay, thank you.
So just quickly to touch on those items one at a time. Yeah, thrilled about the shutters. I think we're going to go back with something a little bit, more historically appropriate to replace those upper level shutters. Obviously the house has a lot going for its curb appeal, and we want to just better it. The whole idea with the stone, our goal is just to remove a small amount of paint to see the stone, and then we'll work with staff obviously to make sure that process is done according to the guidelines. I mean, that's our intent. We don't want to damage any of that stone. It's our hope that we could expose that stone, remove all the paint safely, and try to match that stone with the addition in the rear. Again, if that's not the case and we just keep it painted, we'll just paint the stone in the back to match what's on the front of the house. It's always my goal to make these additions distinguished from the main home, but also to feel like part of the original architecture, or at least paying homage to that architectural style. Here, with talks about the size and massing of, so those, the stone and shutters, great. Hopefully we can check those boxes. The second one I'd like to really focus on this meeting, given that we have such a full agenda, is the second story addition, or the two-story addition on the rear. And I think the best way to see this is from the site plan. Rear two-story additions are very, very common on this street. Particularly the two abutting neighbors. They each have very, very large rear additions, and you can see they extend much farther in the backyard than our proposed addition. The main, I think, thing we all have to come to grips with is where do we draw the line as to what's a historic addition, or what are we counting towards additions in today's modern approach with the commission. Because obviously, we've got some rear additions according to the staff report, but this was obviously done a long time ago. From the interior pictures that I provided, you can see, the flooring is consistent, a lot of the materials, meaning that, even at some upgrade to the house, this would have existed for better part of 50 years. So to us, that seems more in keeping with what everyone else in the neighborhood has been able to allowed to add on to. So all those things considered, yes, we are doing an extension off of that rear wall, but as you can see, that hatched area on the proposed site plan, it's pretty minor compared to what we see even in the adjacent lots as far as an extension into the rear yard. So yeah, and then majority of the addition comes at the second story, where we're going over an existing one-story portion of the house. Again, I wouldn't consider that an addition. I think that it's part of the historic house, at least for our purposes in determining what is historic and what isn't. So let's focus on that. I'm perfectly fine with us continuing the garage for another day. We can touch on it at the end if you guys have time. But I would love to get this addition approved today, if at all possible. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, commissioners, what questions do you have for the applicant?
How much are we over on the addition square footage?
300 square feet, but the main floor addition is 520. So a larger portion of that is stacked above.
And how big was the original? And I do understand it's established at this point. I don't really
I
want to
mean,
say
those
it's historic,
those are all wood doors and windows there on the back side of that house.
But how big was that addition
They listed, let me find it in the staff report.
relevant to the original footprint of the
They
house?
say 570,
570.
and I would consider that part of the historic house where our starting point is today.
Do you know when the addition was built?
I don't. Do you guys? We don't know. After 1950, but before 1977. So
So if it's before 77, then, I mean, that's hitting your 50-year mark, which is what's considered historic, no?
Potentially. I mean, we just don't know. They're not on the Sanborn maps. We don't have a CA for them.
but I think it was there at the time that the neighborhood was established historic, is all I was saying, by the 77.
Okay,
Whereas the neighbors have done more recent additions.
sure.
And I will just say, even with our porches on the back, we're still inside the back wall of the neighbors' houses. So I feel like in this particular, maybe there is a unique circumstance for a little bit larger of an addition. One, because it's stacked, and because the overall addition at the footprint of the building is just over 500 at 520. But even the edging of the roof of the one covered porch that expands beyond that addition is still within the walls that are extending of the additions on either side of this property. So I feel like it fits, is all I'm getting at. And, again, if you were to look at all of these houses as only their 1930s footprint, I think that then we get into some argument about where to draw that line. I certainly consider this part of the historic home as far as our concerns today.
So we have seen a couple of times with these houses that come in this particular style of house, especially that has a very compact footprint. We have seen some additions get approved that went over the square footage that is supported by the guidelines when they were well-designed, when they were very compact, when they were compatible with the house, compatible with the surrounding fabric. So you all have the discretion to go over that square footage limit if you feel like the design is otherwise compatible, secondary, not overwhelming to the historic structure. We do have this confusion, this gray area when we've got houses that have been added onto over time. Obviously, if it's a clearly new addition, we're going to treat that as an addition and not the historic footprint. When
I
it's,
understand about compatibility in the,
yeah.
I do get that.
but we just try to look at what we know was the original form and mass of the house and how far are we getting from that with addition after addition, even when we,
Well, and-
some of those may be historic.
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. I will just also state that if you look at the interiors and things, we're maintaining that historic footprint. And so really, even the addition, it has a maximum on what feels right. I don't want these new rooms to completely, just dwarf the charm of the existing home. And I think that we've done that in this plan. So I do feel it is compatible to the historic footprint and the existing way that this house was used, even in the way that we've pulled back that second floor addition and gone back with another rooftop terrace, which was an existing condition of that existing home and property for many, many years, over 50 years. So again, we're still mimicking what's there, just giving it a little bit more space for, again, the modern conveniences of living, such as a ground floor master and, an ensuite bathroom. There's only currently one bathroom for all the bedrooms upstairs, and there's a bedroom floor bathroom, which is very, very small. So it's not, in other words, it's not an extravagant addition. It's just a very basic thing that we see get approved every day, or every month at the commission, so.
Yeah, I could probably be talked into a little bit larger of a footprint than is allowed, but I do agree that there needs to be some differentiation between what's old and what's new. That's a pretty clear guideline, and we've always historically enforced it. And I'm looking at your west elevation now, where you're showing the line in the middle of the window and completely continuous siding. So whether you just jog that a little bit, or it's a change of material, or whatever it is, I do think we need some pretty clear distinction that it's an addition.
See, and in this, so there is a setback on that side, just naturally as well. The roof creates, in my mind, that distinct differentiation between the two, the addition and the existing home. I mean, you can even see that in this picture next door. I mean, it's pretty clear where the original roof line would have been. And here, I think that trying to keep that another goal of ours was to minimize. You can see we've gone with a 412 pitch, a lower pitch in the rear with a hip. The whole purpose of that is to keep this addition below the main streetscape elevation, so that this addition is certainly not visible from the rear. It ties in behind that ridge line, again, creating a secondary structure in and of itself. It's smaller, it's below it, and it lets it stand proud of the new addition. So I feel like we've done our best to make that obvious. I certainly think the stone, working with staff on whether or not that stone gets fully exposed or not, say we can't match this stone. Okay, say it's just not possible, and we're able to remove all the paint and it's beautiful, but we can't match it. Well, then the stone will end at that existing historic end, and we'll have to go a siding from there on, creating, again, a very distinct line of where the addition begins. So, I feel like staff, as long as staff feels good about us distinguishing that, and as long as you all feel good about that, how we're going, I mean, our goals are all the same. I mean, I want this to be secondary. I feel like any other addition would dwarf it. I feel like this is just nestled just perfectly for this house.
Holly, when you look at this addition from the street,
Yes.
I agree you're not going to see it. Where I'm hung up is when I look at a side view, I almost feel like if I just copy and pasted the original house and stuck it on the addition, it would equate to the addition.
Yeah.
That's a big addition. And I know
Do you
it's
look at the site
tricky.
plan? I
What's
mean,
that?
that is very common for this area, though, and for these types of homes.
Well,
I
think it is-
understand that, but I'm just looking at this one. I didn't have anything to do with how, I'm just looking at this one.
I understand.
It's just, and I know there's some difficulty because this house already has an addition.
I think that's debatable.
And that makes it difficult, but it's just, we're always in these areas where it's like, okay, I can get with you, yeah, it's tastefully done, and I can see where you're discerning this house from this house and what the addition is, but
Well, and you see there
I'm
the
just-
dashed line, that's actually the back of the existing house. So you see that? I don't know if you can see, but the line, the dashed line that goes through like where the master bath is, it makes a jog. That's the existing back of the house. So you can see from that perspective how much we're really adding. We're adding two, basically like 14 by 15 and a 16 by 16 room on the
Yeah,
back
but
side of this.
but
That's all it's growing
I think
into the
what's
backyard.
difficult
It
is-
seems pretty minor to me in comparison
Holly,
to what we see.
can I talk?
Yes, sir.
I think where it's difficult on this one is there is an addition to the house.
Yes, sir.
And it's like,
Certainly.
are we calling that, is it old enough that it's part of the original floor print now, or it is an addition? I follow you on the dash line, and I appreciate it being on there, but if you take in, if I'm understanding, if you take into account what would have been an old addition, that would push that dash line back further.
Katie, do we have a clear rule there? I mean, I think we could, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt that that is an addition. It's just a matter of, you know, I think once before we, you know, you proposed what we deemed a 2-story garage and you were calling it a 1.5, and we said we might approve it if you just
Yeah.
called it a 2. I kind of feel like we're back in following kind of that same narrative of like, this is just an addition to the original footprint, so let's just evaluate it at the square footage that is being considered to have been added to this original footprint.
So the guideline says, new additions shall not exceed 50% of the square footage of the footprint of the existing historic structure, enclosed space only, or 750 square feet, whichever is larger, and shall be no taller, no wider, and no deeper than the existing historic structure. So in looking at, you know, I think the other question, so historic, that's for you all to determine what's historic. If the addition, you know, we know these weren't there in the 1950, 1955 Sanborn maps. We don't know exactly when they were added on. That's kind of you all's discretion, whether you think that's part of the historic footprint. But I think the other question is, because in looking at this, are those, if those are historic, are they just being remodeled, or are they being completely removed and
Being
replaced?
remodeled.
In which case we go back to the footprint of what stays. I think one thing we kind of realized as we looked at this is that a demo plan would help bridging the gap from the existing to
Well,
the,
that's why I put those lines on there, because I wanted you to be able to reference it. You know, and you can put even two PDFs side by side and see the existing versus proposed side by side.
I think the confusion is that I take this to mean that all of the darker shaded walls are new walls,
Yeah.
which would
I guess
suggest
that
that
can
that
be
whole rear
misleading.
addition.
Again, that's why I put those lines on there. Well, a lot of them are. We are renovating that footprint of what is a debatable historic addition. But that, yeah, obviously that footprint is still going to remain occupied, but we're just reworking that layout into this new kind of more family-oriented layout. So it is renovation space. This, at the ground floor, we're only adding 520 square feet to the house.
Do you have your lot coverage on here somewhere that I'm missing?
I'm sorry.
Your lot coverage?
We didn't include it, but I mean, did I not include that? Okay. Well, we're still well below. And again, I mean, as far as coverage on the site, let's see, we're going to be adding 6, 800 square feet total, including porches to the site. 800 square feet. I think maybe it is confusing in the way you guys are looking at it in the plans, and perhaps that's on me as the graphic representation appointee. But yeah,
feel
this
confused
is a
by it.
very small, in my opinion, pretty small addition onto the rear.
I don't feel confused by it. I just think if we ask that of everybody else, we're going to ask it of you because it is occupying some space that
Yeah.
has been green for a
I
long
just meant
time.
maybe it's not evident. Maybe I made it look like it's a whole huge addition. No, we're renovating a portion of the home and then doing a small addition on the rear.
I don't feel like, that's not what I feel like. We ask it of everybody, so we're just asking. I am just asking specifically.
And here's a great image too of just some, this is the historic back of that house there. Their addition, as you can see on mine, it goes like another 25 feet into their backyard. And then the neighbor to the other side, even with our addition and porches, his back wall of his addition will still be deeper into the yard than us. So, and I'd be, I really want to get this approved because obviously the homeowners are just very ready to move their family here. They're a young family, they're very excited about the property, and they're ready to pull the trigger. We've already got a general contractor ready, and so we'd like to get underway on the property and work with the commission on the garage and some other issues with the, but I really wish we could get this going for them so they don't have to wait for a whole nother month. But, that's where I'm at.
I have a question for staff. In these specific findings, it says, number 2 says that elevation drawings may require correction. Can you just elaborate what that means?
Oh, mislabeled?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think we
my
have,
bad.
yes, it's some
I have 3 on the agenda, sorry, I might have mislabeled.
north, south, east, west, or mislabeled.
Okay.
My bad, sorry about that.
And while we're talking about elevations, and since you're up here often, Holly, for me, it would be really helpful to see on the same page the east elevation existing and then the east elevation proposed. Because right now I'm trying to scroll back and forth between different pages.
Never thought of that, but I could start doing
Yeah,
that.
so I think in the future, that would be helpful for us to really easily see the change.
Yeah, especially for a big proposal.
No, that
there's
makes
just kind of a
sense. I
lot.
mean, I just thought of that with even the floor plans. I mean, God, these paper sizes kill me. I still have to make it legible. So, but yeah, I think I can certainly do that with the elevations, and that would be most helpful. I mean, Katie, did the staff overall feel like it was too large for the home?
So I think what I'm looking at is, like when I look at this east elevation,
Yeah,
that portion, the first floor, the
which
one
is labeled wrong. It's
Yeah,
actually.
right.
That's
the
the
west.
one I was trying to talk about
My
earlier.
bad, Caitlin.
Yeah.
I'm like messing with your mind so hard.
Like, there's
Sorry.
no stone on this elevation, Holly. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
At least
and
it doesn't
again-
say left and right, front and back.
But here's probably a good clarification, because you can see where, at the bottom where I say existing and new addition, so that's where that fireplace currently is. See, that whole portion from that dash line to the back of like the second story, 2-story, historic home, that's that. So, yeah, it will have new siding on it, but it won't be new. So maybe that's also confusing. It looks like the expanse the addition, begins at that second story line, but it doesn't. It begins way back here. So that, that total depth there, I think, is around 18 feet.
I mean, we understand that. I think the issue is that when you look at that elevation, you cannot tell that it's an addition. It looks like one thing that's always been there. And the guidelines are very clear about having a distinction between existing and new. Like whether it's a change of material or it's jogged in a little bit, but that is one full facade with a window in the middle of where your addition is.
This is stone, so that line of stone will end right there too.
Yep.
So there will be a sharp,
Yeah,
I
but
don't
it's
know how
at
to see
like,
it as a line.
but it's where the existing meets the new. That line that's going through the middle of a window right now.
Okay,
For me, for staff, it's hard looking at the existing west elevation that has
that jog.
This
I-
flat,
I guess I see what
this
you're
flat
saying.
roof and the chimney, and then looking at the proposed west elevation, it's hard to not look at that entire thing as an addition.
Yes.
Whether or not some floor and walls stay or not, that is a completely different design, material, form than what is there now. So to me, that whole thing becomes a new addition.
Right,
You're
like-
removing an addition and you're putting on a new
Okay.
one.
Well, I mean, we can certainly keep that wall. I mean, I could even keep that chimney and just raise it and leave a false chimney if we wanted to, honor. I guess that's where I'm at, is like, to me, even though this is an old historic addition, it's not well done, and I want to fix it.
Well, let me
That's
clarify.
what architects do.
I'm not concerned about keeping the addition. I'm concerned about the size of what's proposed.
Right.
But I think my assessment
think
of
I
how
get what
big
you're
it is different than what you're saying. What I'm seeing as new square footage added onto the house,
Yeah.
different than what's
It's
kind
basically,
of
y'all
been-
ever play
yeah.
Tetris? It's like those two things that fit together. That's basically what I'm adding, is more
I would
sitting
prefer-
over that existing.
I just prefer to see it come back as a proposed addition. I think that, like, if you bring it back that way, you've done a great job of, creating the difference between the old and the new and making that really obvious. I do think we'll have to talk about the size. I would just prefer to see it all as a proposed addition, and I'd like to see the lot coverage. I think it looks really nice. I just think, like, we're going.
So what are you saying? I am proposing it as an addition.
Well, you're saying that this old existing
I think it's up to
addition-
you all to decide whether you are going to count this square footage as part of the historic square
Well, I
footage or
wouldn't,
not.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, I personally would
Even
not.
though it
I
was
think it
built
is an
before the
addition.
district was,
Well, we have no idea when it was built.
we know it was built before 77, but
How do we know that?
just the property records from the county assessor. That's when they started taking record of this area.
Well, they actually don't include, but I mean, like, are you talking about like a build permit or
I'm
something?
just saying that that's when the zoning ordinance was
That doesn't mean people don't do
initiated.
things. We see that all the time. We
Well,
know
I'm just
people do
saying it
things
shows
outside
up
of
then,
this.
and it didn't in the 1950 Sanborn map. I guess I just need to make a stronger case, but it sounds like to me like you still might consider that part of my 750, and I guess that's what I want to nail down today. Is this considered something that if I'm like renovating it, do I get to keep that square footage, or does that going to count towards my addition?
I
guess
think
that's what
we need to
decide.
understand what I need to understand is where, and I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm saying where are you getting this information that this was done prior to 1977, like specifically where?
So are you saying on the county assessor, which I'm very familiar with the county assessor.
Yeah.
I access it all the time. as
I
an
mean, I
architect.
need to go back and look, but yes.
So if the county assessor in its very first record of this property where it lists square footage, if it has the addition's square footage on it in that first 1977 record of it, then I personally would argue that it's historic. I mean, 50 years is what MPS and HP and everyone considers as historic. And if it was built in 1977, that's 48 years. Likely that it was built a year or two before then. So I would be happy to argue it as historic. But I need to specifically see something from the county assessor that says that. Oh, look at that.
And I guess, Caitlin, to your point, that is why, because normally I would always keep a distinguishing line. You guys know me. But here I didn't think it was as important because being that it wasn't doing much for that historic home, and I knew it was an addition, but a very early one, that's, why I didn't pay homage to it here. To me, it was about correcting the mistakes of that maybe 60s addition and repairing some, kind of breathing new life into the existing historic home. So that, but I think, yeah, we can get a middle ground. I just really, really was hoping we could make a decision today. But it sounds like it's a continuance. So is that where you guys all are? Or is anybody willing to make a motion for me?
I think it's beautiful, but I think there is some missing info, and I think we're not at a place where we could comfortably approve it. I would love to see you come back with some documentation about it, some lot coverage info, just maybe make a clear case one way or the other as to why it should not be counted as, why that little 60s or 70s addition or whatever should or should not be counted as part of the original footprint. But I do think we need some very clear info there because I mean, to me, it actually appears that maybe there were two separate additions at some, an enclosed porch and an addition. And so I just would like, if that's going to be part of the argument, like, let's figure out what that actually was.
Yeah, county assessor has all kinds of crap on here,
Right.
but there's, their plans say that there's something here was built in 2005, another thing here was built in 2007. So yeah, I would need to see more that says
I think,
1970.
All
we may
right, so
not
then
have,
let's chat on the garage then.
I was just going to say, I think the other thing that we might not have asked you for before, but that I think would be really helpful is a demo plan to understand
No problem.
what's staying, what's going.
Oh, yeah, that's just turning on and off layers. That'll be easy. Okay, so can we talk about the garage really quick, and then I'll be happy to take my continuance and sit down. Just your thoughts on it. So here's our thoughts on it, is right now that garage is not very workable. It has, I spoke with Katie like right when I got this project, and she was like, this is a really weird kind of situation because we don't see this garage on the Sanborn maps, but they know it's old, but it's like, it's kind of, you want to talk on that really quickly about the garage? And
Trying to remember what we found with that one. Was this one that
it's just
not on the
there.
Sanborn maps?
It's never on the Sanborn
It was never on the
maps.
so we believe the garage is certainly not original to the house and perhaps
Certain.
not historic. And it's
Definitely
kind of
non-historic.
kind of an odd looking structure.
I've never seen a garage like that in my life.
So
And as we
I think,
know,
yeah, when
flat
we
roofs
initially-
with no one up there cleaning off roofs or leaves and debris, they have terrible water infiltration issues. So our hopes is just to put a roof on the structure. In fact, we would keep a lot of it. It has, the rear wall is actually a CMU lateral load-bearing wall. So the idea would just be to frame in. We could probably even use those same floor joists, well, they're ceiling joists here, but they're pretty thick. They're like 2x12s. So we might be able to just leave a lot of that structure, but make it wider, more approximating the 450 square feet, a little more than. And obviously just pitching a roof on it so we can not only get interior storage, but prevent water infiltration in the future and make it look more in keeping with the neighborhood. It is a little flat back there. It looks bad from the street. It looks like it's metal siding or something to me and to the current homeowners. So.
I really don't have a lot of issues with the garage other than I have concerns over the overall effect that the shed dormer is creating with the potential bulk of this addition that's being proposed. I think it's a delightful looking garage, but I think that the massing of it's a little bit off if we're considering, if your other proposal is to drag an addition out several feet. Definitely don't debate that this is not in keeping with the historic character of the neighborhood and could use some improvements. And I think the primary structure of the garage is like spot on for the neighborhood, but the shed dormer, facing the facade of that wall that we're talking about extending is getting a little bit
Shed
much.
actually faces interior, won't be seen from the street.
Well, yeah,
but
I know.
I get you. I totally feel you. And to be honest, if we need to work together to scale down, like if you all felt like maybe a couple of smaller dormers just to reduce that massing is more appropriate. My whole thinking here is that the edge wall, the west wall of that garage, from there we're shooting up 10-12, which matches that same pitch that we see on the front of the house. So it gets up there pretty quick and out of view pretty quick. So by the time you're at that center ridge, you're behind the house altogether from the street view.
I don't think that I could personally motion to approve it with the shed dormer without getting clarity on the addition. I could very comfortably get on board with approving it without the shed dormer today, or you could, come back with clarity next month and kind of see. I mean, that's just me. Everybody else may feel entirely
And the
differently
two-story
about it.
addition is so much more important to the homeowners. I love hearing that, Sarah, but a couple things I just want to point out. Again, going from side plan, existing to proposed side plan, the footprint of the garage will not change whatsoever, minus a stair up to this attic space upstairs. But we're really just keeping it right where it is, so no change to the lot coverage I think that's really important. And again, now we're not just shooting a bunch of water off into our neighbor's yard. You know, we'll be able to gutter this thing and properly get rid of the water down, you know, down some downspouts. And so I think all of these things for us are pretty, to me, not hugely impactful on this site or the neighborhood at large, especially given that we have these two monster giant houses on either side of us that are hiding everything that's going on in this backyard. But I appreciate the feedback, guys. I know you'll have a full agenda, so if you have any other questions, but it
I have one
sounds
more
like we're
comment.
going to a continuance, so.
One more comment. On the proposed elevation of the garage, can you
Yes.
add the dimensions of like the width and the length? Because it's on the,
Yeah.
it's on the existing, but it only gives you height dimensions for the elevation.
Yeah, I actually have another
proposed.
comment too.
Which one, what?
I was going to say, you mentioned the 1012 was matching the house. Garage is an accessory structure, just should always be secondary, and so I feel like maybe it shouldn't match the house, and it should.
Maybe like an 812? Sorry.
Like, yeah, 7 or 812, like make it come down a little bit. I think that would help reduce the massing a little bit. I have no problem with you know, enclosing the weird porch space on it. But yeah, for me, the pitch and then the dormers are, I can't get on board with that. But that's
So
me.
I'll just note, that, you know, we don't really have guidelines, we don't have much in the way of guidelines for alterations to an existing garage, so we kind of look to what we say about new garages, and we are adding a story to a one-story garage, and we have
Not a
very
full
clear
story.
language about, it looks like a pretty,
It's not, it's only 3 feet. I remember after Hudaberg, I
well,
was
we're
like,
going up
okay,
to a
3
half story.
feet.
So just to, if there's anything else you all want to see or other, you know, supporting documentation you all would want from the applicant for adding 1 to a half story on a 1-story garage.
I just think
If it
there's
was a
such
new garage proposal, we would be saying, where are your
Show us.
surrounding 2-story
Yeah.
garages? Give us justification for going taller.
Would we be for the 1.5 story?
I think
the
guidelines
guidelines
say
say
you can
both.
have 1.5.
So without the shed dormer, is it not 1.5?
I
That was
mean,
what I read it to be.
with it.
22
No, it is
feet
a
is-
half. It's a half story, for sure. I even went back and double checked with the comments last time. And if I'm wrong, I promise staff and I will reduce it to wherever it needs to
That's
be.
what I'm saying.
We just need, because like you guys know, storage is a huge issue. And you can tell in the front of this house, the existing roof is already really low. You can see it already clips in that second floor ceiling. It's below 8 feet. So there's no attic space in this house whatsoever. So storage is an issue. That's why, you know, we really would like, and just really trying to fix the roof and make use of the storage space above that, or beneath that.
I mean, you've added 13 feet. That feels like a full story to me, personally.
Commissioners, what other
Full
questions?
story, 8 foot
Comments
tall.
on this item? Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak? Sorry, my microphone was off. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak? Okay, there being none. Commissioners, do we have a motion on any of these items?
Are we?
Sorry, are we wanting to separate this out since there are a couple of things that can
Yeah.
be?
To be honest, I don't really see the point. I think that we can work with staff on getting the stone solution and maybe even move forward with that. I mean, if we can't get the second edition or the 2-story addition approved, like, it's fine. We're coming back. Full continuance. Thanks for the
Which meeting?
feedback.
June or July?
Sooner the better.
Well, then I will make a motion on HPCA 25-00027 to continue all items to the
June 4th.
4th meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue to the June 4th commission. Do we have a second? We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been continued. Next up, we have HPCA-25-00028 at 628 Northwest 16th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Britt Portree, James Gray Homes for Forrest Wilson for certificate of appropriateness to, I'm not going to read the whole list, but renovate and remodel the home and backyard space. The commission saw this once previously and provided feedback to the applicant on several aspects of the design. The applicant has come back with some of those revisions to the design. The staff report goes in depth on lots of different items that meet, items that still don't appear to meet guidelines, items where additional dimensions or documentation are necessary. I would say staff's overarching concern with this is still that this is a very large addition on the side of a house in a location where it will be fully visible. And some revisions have been made to the design of that, but we still have concerns about that compatibility and just the visibility of the form of it, kind of regardless of the design. So the applicant is here to answer any questions you all may have, and staff will answer questions about particulars as we go along.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Brittany Portree. I'm with James Gray Homes. I also have Forrest Wilson with me. He's the homeowner, and the address is 628 Northwest 16th Street.
Okay, thank you. Okay, talk to us about kind of some of the changes that have been made on this.
Yeah, so we made a few changes based on the recommendations, mostly from Caitlin and David from last commission, and I think that this is a better design. We made it a flat roof, taking off 50% of the visible structure because we had that other roof on it that was just massive. We also changed the material, going from brick to a shingle. There was an addition that was done. There wasn't a permit pulled on it, but on the inside it looks like a new part of the house, like I'm totally guessing early 2000s, where shingles were added to the east side. So we decided to continue that siding all the way around. We also included a couple precedent studies, one for additions on the east side, and then one for gas fixtures that are around the neighborhood.
Thank you for putting existing and proposed on the same sheets.
So, sorry, there's a lot to
One thing that we
take in.
One thing that we noted in the staff report I don't think really got discussed last time is that the original plat of this area of the neighborhood has a 20-foot setback on the east side that is designated in the plat to be for essentially driveways and landscaping. And the proposed addition appears to extend well into that 20-foot setback. Now, the plat is 120-something years old. Do it. Legal has told us that because of where it is and the way it's written on the plat, that we should still be upholding that. It's not something that typically comes up for us, but wanted to make you all aware of that language.
Katie, have we ever, to your knowledge, approved an addition that is front-facing, that is this substantial, not something like an enclosed porch or
I'm not
anything like
aware of
that?
something of a side addition like this that has been this prominent, that has come to the commission. We've had side additions that were, in the time that I've been here, we've had side additions that were behind a side porch, so
Yeah.
or a portico share, so the porch or
But
portico
a
share was
front
kind of
face,
screening.
like a street facing.
Not street facing like this and not at this size.
Yeah, the only side one I could even think of recently was that really small house, I think in Mesta, that like had the weird bay window.
Right. But that was about 2 feet.
Yeah, that was only a
And it was
couple
on the
feet just
back
to make like the
30% of
bedroom
the,
more
it was behind
useful.
that bay.
Yeah.
I personally just don't know that I could ever get behind something this substantial facing the street. I think it is a really permanent change that dramatically impacts the house, but also is in pretty stark contrast with the guidelines and our precedents. So I think it would be a really slippery slope to start approving things like this. You know, I know everybody's trying to, we're kind of in this rhythm of everybody trying to put as much into their backyard and their garage and everything else as possible. And I think that if we start to approve things like this, the next logical step is everybody's going to say, well, I've got a pool and I've got a garage and I've got this. And so now I just want to put it on the side of my house. So I think, you know, the kind of overriding goal of HP in my mind is, you know, when I'm walking down the sidewalk, this place is supposed to look like it did when it was built. And when you do something that dramatically and permanently impacts it like that, I think it's, for me, a hard no as it pertains to the guidelines.
I hear you. I do want to say that we wouldn't have pursued putting it on the east side unless there wasn't the diagram on page 270 of the historic preservation guidelines saying that we could do a addition on the side. We decided to pursue that because there's a pool in the back, and it, like, the whole thing just has hardscape outbuildings and pools on the back. I also will say that there are 3 other houses with additions on Northwest 16th Street on the east side. And so again, that was further justification for us to not waste our clients' time.
Are they additions or enclosed porches?
Additions. It should be included. I
yeah.
sent it to you guys.
The diagram,
Yeah.
it's on the one that says illustration.
So
Oh,
it
sorry,
does
that's a tab I
show,
don't have open.
it says less than half of the building width. And it does show like a significant like cutout to show that it's very different addition than, or like there's a break in the new and the old. It's that one page at the top.
Sorry, I thought it was a diagram of the ones that existed right now. What I was
That's just
looking
from
for.
their guidelines, that's
Yeah.
the diagram.
No, I
That's a
was looking
separate
for it.
document. I can give you addresses too, if you need them.
I don't know if we can actually,
Because I submitted the documents within the time. I know that we were crunched for time with getting such a large application to you guys in a month, but there shouldn't be any reason why you shouldn't have this precedent study from the information that I have.
Yeah, I don't know. Seems hard to argue with that, Katie. What do we?
What is this illustration? If it's not illustrating a project like this, what is it illustrating?
I mean, it is illustrating, it, you know, except I have to look at where that is in the guidelines.
yeah, I've never seen this. I'm not saying it's not in there. I've
No,
never
it's
encountered
in the
this
guidelines, and I
map,
know you
so I'm
did give
just
us
not
the
familiar.
precedent study. I'm trying to figure out which document that is
That's okay. I know that
attached
we've all gone
to.
back and forth
The
a
gas
lot,
one is here,
so.
So the other one's probably here too.
Yeah. I think that is illustrating scenarios where a side addition, a rear or side addition may be appropriate. To me, the language in the guidelines is much more detailed and specific about when and where and how you can build a side addition. And to me, that overrules a graphic. So I think they both are providing information and guidance to the commission, to applicants about how and when
So
to
perhaps
do
this
something.
graphic needs to be clarified at some point in the future.
Yeah. Well, and put into the context of what the guidelines
I think
that
she's-
surround that say in the
Right.
document.
Like the guidelines do clarify it, but the guidelines aren't present in this graphic.
Because we tried to make the addition exactly like the diagram, again, and not wanting to waste anybody's time.
Katie, is there an easy way to pull the language surrounding that diagram?
Let me get back to the staff report.
I would like to know that just as a point of clarity moving forward, because like I said, I've never encountered that graphic that's clearly in there somewhere. But to me, like, I don't think my opinion on how this dramatically changes the historic landscape of that street or of this home really changes. I think it's certainly not a minimal change, and it is very prominent.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time, there's a diagram in there. And whether it's written or not, there's an exhibit that shows that you can add an addition to the side. And the way I look at it is it's saying, don't make it, completely match, and maybe make sure there's a differentiation or some sort of from the addition, and it's got to be less than half of the building, I'm assuming the existing building width.
Well, I just want to point out, and I'm not arguing that, we're making assumptions about this because it actually is not, this isn't actually
Not in
labeled front,
context.
back, left, right. Like this is, we're making an assumption that this longer street is the front and not a side street. Do you see what I'm saying?
I don't think it would matter because it's clearly
I mean, they're just
the front of
individual.
the houses.
Yeah, there's a corner. It's
Right, I
clearly
just-
a block.
I just would like, I feel like this is very unclear to just be looking at this and saying like, this is what this infers, this is street facing, this is examples of all of these happen. I don't like not having the surrounding language and
I agree. The
the
context
graphics on the other page that are next to it, like I just don't like.
The context within the guidelines would be helpful.
So the guidelines, this graphic is embedded in the pages of the guidelines that talk specifically about additions. 4.3.1 must be compatible in design, proportion, size, texture, color, and detail, and appropriate to the architectural style of the building. 4.3.2, new additions must be planned so they're constructed to the back of the property or on a non-character defining elevation, preferably not visible from the public right-of-way. Character defining features of buildings should not be radically changed. Existing historic fabric should not be damaged. The next one talks about overall character of historic districts and reducing the ratio of built to open space. Additions should not exceed 50% of the square footage of the footprint of the existing historic structure, or 700, whichever is larger. Must be visibly distinguishable from the original building. Must be designed so that connections between new construction and historic structures are clearly discernible. Differentiated by connecting the two with a modest connector. This goes into different methods for differentiation, being secondary, compatible materials, respect the massing, roof shape, base spacing, cornice lines, and materials of the building to which it's being added. So the one that really talks about the location is that 4.3.2, planned so that they are constructed to the back of the property on a non-character defining elevation, preferably not visible from the public right-of-way. So I think there are scenarios where an addition on the side is appropriate, and that's what this graphic illustrates, but that doesn't mean that all of these other criteria about compatibility, about differentiation, about the proportion and massing and form of the historic structure don't still apply.
Well, I would say it bears some clarification.
Yeah.
If it's in here as an, the way you just read it, compared to what's on this sheet sounds to me like an either or, like, hey, do this or do this. They're both fine. So I can see the mistake. I, again, maintain it doesn't change my opinion of it impacting the historic character of the home or being too prominent, but I think that's.
Yeah, and I know that Sarah, I agree with you guys. And I also want to say that we're not trying to look for a loophole in the guidelines. We're just working with the information that was given. And so for at least myself, who wants to be building for a very long time in this neighborhood, I think that clarification would be helpful on both sides. But also, and I know that Sarah wasn't a part of the last meeting, I believe that this addition is more in line with the proportion, the siding, and also Caitlin and I worked on window placement, which we adjusted. So we believe that it is within the guidelines.
I mean, I do agree that the work you've put in, it was significant, and I think it does proportionally work better and does feel better within the defining historical context of the home. I really think just the question here is whether the rest of the commission can get on board with the side addition or not. But if yes, then I do think it works a lot better than what we'd seen last month.
I don't think I could ever get on board with this prominent to change at the front of the house. But I am one person.
So you talked about on the plat, the limitation for extending over that line?
We have been going down that rabbit trail. It seems like that it is a three-part jurisdiction between the permitting office, zoning, and HP, with their each having their own guidelines. Zoning office, and I know that Katie and I spoke a little bit about legal and who that is exactly. They said that because there was an outbuilding that was built within the 20-foot setback, that we have an argument to not adhere to that limitation for this lot.
Wasn't that wasn't that the language of that setback though, is that it was 4 drives and like auto houses? Because I'm very familiar with that block, and there are a lot of large side yards right there, and a lot of them have garages at the back of that east
Yeah,
side.
it was for driveways and landscaping. And I don't know if that was over time interpreted that the driveway can go to an outbuilding.
Feels
I
logical.
don't think we have that exact wording in the staff report, so I can't tell you exactly what it
Okay.
says. And it may well be something that if the addition were to be approved as part of permitting, that's something that gets evaluated. And if it's not permitted to be constructed in that location, they would have to come back and make that change. We reached out to Stephen Barker in legal, and he said he looked at the plat, and he's been working with subdivision and zoning on similar questions that come up on some of the other older plats, and said that yes, in his interpretation, it would still apply.
So I think that for me, that may be an overarching issue to the graphic that is a little confusing. That limitation on the plat.
We still also have the precedent study where other families have built additions and garages on the east side within that plat setback.
I feel confident you're right, just knowing this little stretch as well as I do. For me, though, like additions are just always supposed to be secondary. Like, we just saw that one right before where we're talking about, well, you can't see it from the street, but it's too big, it's this, it's that. This does not feel secondary. This feels like some, version of when you see people stick like a really cool glass pod on the side of a historic home, and it feels like we're talking about doing something like that, but it's so prominent, I feel that you won't be able to see the home as it were built anymore.
What could make it feel secondary for you?
For me, I don't think much could, but I am just one person. I just, it's so rare that we have allowed for a substantial street-facing change.
Sure.
It's a big allowance. Like that's the most permanent thing we can give somebody, right, is to change the front of this home as it's been sitting there for 100 years. So it's very delicate, and for me, it would have to be very minor.
Sure.
Or returning something back to the way it once was.
Can you clarify what's on the roof of the addition? Is that just a decorative rail?
Yeah, I went after, it's a little bit more prominent in Edgemere, but I have seen it in Heritage Hills where it's a parapet. It has like just a little 2-foot decorative railing. We took half of the mass of the structure of the first time off of it, and driving around wanting to do due diligence and make sure that it does feel and look historic, I did add a little railing.
One thing I want to comment about this graphic that some of us, I think maybe I've only seen this graphic, this acceptable, unacceptable locations for additions. I think I've only seen it one time. Katie, I appreciate all the clarity you were able to give us on. I think what also makes this one graphic difficult is the way I'm interpreting is we're viewing from above looking down, and that is rarely how any of us look at these properties. We look at them from the street forward. So in order, in my opinion, for this graphic to be even more helpful and accurate is what is the acceptable locations for additions from a side elevation? What does that look like looking at it? Because only those that fly above these neighborhoods are going to know, oh, okay, I remember that drawing, that was acceptable. And we don't often see it that way. And I'm
Yeah.
saying that to point out, when you look at the side elevation of this one, the lines are just a little intense because the way that it's a single story, and I know we started as a two-story, and then if you are going to do a single story, but now you have this weird break from what is a very graceful porch into kind of this hard, rigid box addition that is right up on the house.
Yeah, that was us pursuing differentiation on the addition
Sure.
from the comments from last time. I will also say that we rarely see front elevations without landscape and fencing, but there is a fence in front of this addition that goes 6 feet. And so having a single-story addition, half of it being covered
Yeah,
by a
and I
fence,
agree
I
with that,
think is
because I think
helpful.
how you have, you have trees, that softens how, we see additions and how the houses
Is
are
it-
made.
Sorry.
Is this not more than half the width of the existing home, though? I mean, is that not a pretty overriding?
It doesn't look like it is.
I think this is another, it depends on how you measure it. When looking at the elevation drawing of it and what you can see in the elevation, it doesn't look like it's wider than the house plus the porch. I think when you look at the floor plan and how it kind of wraps around, and you look at the back elevation and what's addition and what's existing, we're perhaps getting pretty close to being at or beyond the width of the house.
Say that last part again, Katie.
When you look at the rear of the addition and how it wraps around and encloses a back porch, it is potentially as wide, if not wider, than the historic house.
But then I kind of see that as like an addition. It's behind the house. I mean, it's it's an addition that's behind the house. So like my concern would be, what is front facing? What is it, more than half?
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The square footage is 480 square feet. There's a little bit of a previous addition in that, but 480. Also, to Sarah's comment on the last one, we do have a site coverage percentage on the site plan for you guys, and we're bringing it down weirdly, but that's just because of how much hardscape we're also taking out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge lot.
I mean, I think that the last owners hated grass. So
It's a beautiful lot. I don't have anything new to add, so I'm gonna.
Let me ask, are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
There are comments, right, from Mustapart that just says they're in agreement with staff's recommendations.
Okay, there are no public comments except for the ones in writing from the Neighborhood Association. Hopefully everybody got to read those. Commissioners, I know there's a lot here. Due to the time, though, we need to start moving this towards either continuances or approvals or denials.
Yeah, I'm torn. I mean, I think that the graphic in there makes it ambiguous and seems to indicate that it is possible to add a front addition. And I feel like they kind of followed the graphic. The plat issue is a concern of mine. I don't know if there's a way to figure that out and solve that.
Well, there is still one more month to figure that out before they find themselves in any sort of a bind.
And
So
we are going down that process to figure it out. It seems like that there are different offices that have lots of confusion around it, so we're just doing lots of back and forth.
Well, and that wouldn't get through zoning when they submitted a building permit if it wasn't allowed, and so then it would have to come back to us anyway.
Permitting has told us that it would go back to zoning
Right.
for like the plat situation.
Right, yeah, so if they
You couldn't
said
get
no
built in if
and
they
didn't
said no.
approve it, then you would either have to prove it to them or work with a lawyer, but either way, it would have to come back to us, I think, if it just wasn't a possibility.
I would just say that I was cautioned on buying in historical neighborhoods because of the additions, but I found that graphic before I bought the house, and that's part of the reason I bought the house. just because I thought it was allowed.
And I sympathize with that because I'm a realtor and I try to do a really good job of explaining to my clients that there are no guarantees. And, you know, I agree, that's really confusing. I think we need to work towards clarifying it. However, the language surrounding it on the other side also indicates that, you know, it needs to be secondary. It needs to be in keeping with the structure around it, with the neighborhood around it. And for me, I'm not saying there could never be a side addition that weren't. I just think this is a little too prominent for me to face the street.
But you also, just so I'm understanding, there's nothing that I could present on the east elevation that would.
Not that big and that prominent. No, I mean, I think like such a substantial change to the front of the home. I almost feel like when I look at the elevations, I'm looking at two different structures. And for me, that's really disjointed for the neighborhood. Like it's not reading as one cohesive home for me. It's reading as the home, and then there's this kind of jog, and there's this other structure.
Yeah, we talked about that a little last time because the second story is very west justified. And when I was designing, I kept wanting to like pitch the whole thing to the east. And so I don't disagree with you.
Well, I think last time it was kind of a concern on the size, the massing of it.
Yeah, because I tried to bring the roof all the way over to connect to the second story, but then that created a lot of shingles and roof. And so it was a consideration because then it was very, very much wasn't a secondary structure.
Yeah, and I don't know what exactly to recommend, but that's the last time it was this massive structure that became, and I kind of agree with Sarah that now we have this object set on the side that doesn't look anything like anything else to the house. I mean, I would have a concern with it walking down the street. I used to live right behind that house. And to have that house the way it was, is it set to be distinguished differently than the original house? Yeah, totally. But that doesn't always mean that it's appropriate if it looks totally different. And you said in Edgemere Park, there was parts with the parapet on top, and that's not Edgemere Park. So, you know, that comparison's a little different. I have a concern with how totally different it looks in structure and design, everything else, aside from the fact that you are taking up a good portion of the yard. The fact that the fence is covering part of it is true, but that's also a 6-foot fence in the front, which is not very common or normal.
Sure, I hear you. You don't believe that it looks anything like anything that part of the house because of the windows, the siding, the colors, like what is making you make that judgment if I am following all of the rules of the differentiation, the setback, the same materials, the same window placements? What could make it look like the rest of the house for you?
Well, I don't know. I mean, your house, you have the columns, the porch, all this, and then you just have this block on the side. So, and I'm not sure that I would ever be comfortable with whatever you put on that side by taking up that yard. I know there's a lot of other houses that have huge side yards, and my house was one of them. I would have never thought of filling in that side yard. It's just not something I would do. If the design, you know, the graphic that you saw, I mean, I want to go back and look through that in its entirety because, you know, we have it here where it's just part of that right there. I want to look at it too because I don't want people to buy houses, especially people that do their homework beforehand and now are being told no, so.
Yeah, and the original lot coverage was at 75, 76%. I love a good yard too, and so we brought that down, though you were right, it didn't bring it down on the side.
Yeah.
But it was important for us to give yard back, especially with a family with 3 young kids.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate that.
yeah.
What's the new lot coverage?
What did you say?
The new lot coverage?
It's on the site plan. It's 66 to 69. I'm not sure, but it's in the block where I have I say all the materials, and I even have the percentage of lot coverage like by what it is.
69% lot coverage.
Before it was like
And
75.
it was
So they brought
74.
it down.
Yeah.
I think I'm also struggling with just the continuation of a long, flat roof at the front. It's very uncommon at the front of the house. You know, I can think of a few examples like up and down Robinson on the corners where somebody has added on to the front of a little bungalow. I think far prior to this commission, but I think that's just a really uncommon look, especially on something that's got like the Prairie Craftsman
architecture.
I hear you.
I think that just long continuation just feels unintentional with the house, maybe, just lacking in connection to its history and its architecture.
A gabled roof wasn't preferable to the commission either, so
I
it's
think
just-
doing stuff to the front of the house is always going to be like, even if it is allowed, like probably just the trickiest, we're watching it like hawks. Like it's probably the hardest pass anybody's ever going to get in this room is making a big front facing alteration.
Yeah.
I'm clearly of the mindset to motion to continue, but if anybody wants to make a different motion, I'll, settle down.
Let me ask, though, there's a lot of items in here. The addition being one item, there's several others.
Staff recommended all of them to be continued.
I think most
All-
of them are all going to be tied in
To
with
that,
each
okay.
other.
I
And if
just wanna make
something
sure.
changes about the side addition, that's going to trigger changes to other parts. And I would assume they're not going to want to move forward with a significant,
No, and I wonder
renovation
if,
without the whole thing being approved.
yeah, I hear you. I wonder if a motion to continue, feels almost like a fool's errand to me right now. We felt like that we had a really good path forward with no commitments after the first meeting, and we spent so much time making those changes. So if there can be a path forward, then I would want to put more work into continuing it, but I don't want to waste my time.
So I think we can continue to June 4th or to July 2nd. We could, if you'd wanted to meet with staff again between now and then and discuss what's been said in this meeting, discuss what other changes you would consider. If you ultimately decide after that you don't want to move forward with any of that, then you can certainly withdraw it. But if it's denied today, then it's denied, and you would have to reapply and,
If it's
kind of
denied,
start
though,
over.
they have the right to appeal to the Board of Adjustment.
That's true. You could deny an appeal to Board of Adjustment.
But you could do that if we deny you on pass 3 too. I wouldn't waste your continuance. You may have some giant epiphany in the night, or y'all may change your goals overnight. It feels like why waste the opportunity to come back in July if you've got between now and 6 weeks from now to even decide if you want to come back.
What do you want to do?
I think what Britt is struggling with is that the first one's too big. We get it. The second one we thought was more in line with what you expected. You don't like that one. So without some sort of guidance, honestly, I love that you guys care about the outside because I personally care more about the inside, what my family's gonna see. So I like that you guys are taking care of that, but there's not a path to get the outside to look something that's gonna be approved. There's really no point for us. So I
what
hate to
I-
say I want a denial. I don't want that because I want the square footage. And I'd like to work with you guys to get the aesthetic correct, if there's a path.
What I will say is that we met with staff after the last meeting, and I think my biggest point that I do not feel was reflected in any of the changes is that the massing is too large. It is far too wide in proportion to the vertical proportion of the historic structure. And something about the layout is going to need to change to get to an appropriate massing that is compatible with the house. And I don't know if you have to lose square footage or if you can adjust depth and shrink some things, but I think that aesthetic changes to the materials and the roof are not enough to get to an appropriate proportion, to an appropriate design without changing the actual size and width of the proposed addition. And I don't think that changed. The
So-
roof came down, but you didn't shrink it.
So I understand for this and then for future, when you say, I walk into this thinking I took 50% of the mass of the house off by changing the roof. And so I didn't purposefully not change the plan based on that recommendation, because I heard you and we changed a lot about this addition, a lot for the better. But when you say massing, you don't believe it's the mass of the addition.
I'm saying that it is very horizontal because of the width of the addition. Whether it's got a pitched roof on top or a flat roof, it reads as a very horizontal form, and the house is very vertically oriented. So, and when we looked at some of those examples of other side additions, some of which are, I would say, probably not actually additions, they're probably original to the house, and they're side porches that have been enclosed, that sort of thing. The proportion of the addition matches it's like a shrunken down
More delicate.
version of the house, but it's the same proportions, it's the same height to width ratios. And I think that the height to width ratio here is too far off from the height to width ratio of the house.
You know, there was another thing that dawned on me when I was staring at it just now, and I think something's bothering me about the lack of continuation of the porch. Like, we don't usually see porches just kind of go 2/3 across the width of a house. And so something about, like, obviously, you know, you can't continue it all the way over there, but there's something about that feels really off to me, to kind of like cut that porch when you're staring at the front of it, and then there's this like jog and there's this long continuation. You know, throughout the neighborhood, there's kind of like generally stoop porches or full porches. And so something about that is reading lacking in like historic authenticity.
But for example, if I instead of 20-foot width and elevation, I did 10 foot, and I added a porch to the full 10 feet, that wouldn't change your opinion on whether or not I should add an addition to the east side in general?
I mean, I have no idea. I just think what you've proposed today and anything that was proposed last month is very prominent for a front-facing addition. So, you know, you may come back with something that's 10 feet wide next month, and it may not read the same way, but, you know, we couldn't really comment on that without seeing it. What's been proposed is extremely prominent, and it's too prominent for me to feel comfortable approving it.
Was this here last month, or was it 2 months ago? It was last month.
Yeah, I think
I don't remember this one.
with what the rest of the commission is saying, it just feels like a kind of a small thing that is stuck on. And it definitely feels new, but not congruent with the rest of the home because the home is so vertical. So I don't know if that means it does go back to 2 stories, but the proportion changes some, or you wrap the porch around so that, you know, maybe part of that is hidden and it doesn't feel so, you know, in your face. I don't know what the solution is there, but I think, yeah, proportionally, it just needs some adjustment. And I don't know how to give you that direction exactly because I don't know what your goals are for the additional square footage, but.
And you know, it's tricky. I mean, some homes do lend themselves to a little bit more of a cohesive side addition, whether it's within our guidelines or not. I mean, just architecturally, some homes do lend themselves to a less invasive, less obvious side addition. But with these roof lines, with that setback of the kind of center structure of the house against the porch overhang, like it's definitely a tricky one. I don't envy you trying to figure it out, but you know, just because there is the option to add on to the side of a house in theory in these guidelines doesn't mean it's going to be an appropriate fit for, you know, we allow all sorts of materials that may not be appropriate for one house over another. There's a lot of minutia in there, and I think this is a good example of something that's going to, you know, one rule's maybe not going to be able to apply to all of these homes.
I mean, I would really hate for them to like try to make amendments again and come back just to be like, yeah, it still doesn't fit. Like, and then continue to like incur design costs and I mean, really, Sarah, I feel like I'm hearing you're saying like, really, there's not a whole lot that would make you comfortable with it to be added to the side.
I can't see a design that I can come up with in my mind that wouldn't be prominent where this is. And for me, the prominence is the problem. But I'm not an architect, and I'm not going to be the one coming up with the idea. So,
is there any kind of width? Like, is it no extension past the porch? Is there some sort in your mind or in anybody's mind? Like, is there, how long is too long or something like that? Like,
I mean, again, for me, it's the prominence. Like, we're all saying the same thing. This looks like a secondary structure that was just kind of popped onto the side of the house, and that feels prominent, and prominence on a front addition is kind of contrary to what we like to reflect within these guidelines and within these commissions and within our approvals. So, but again, I may be the only person up here who's struggling with the prominence of this.
It's not my favorite. I'm just trying to assess based off of the diagram, and I do think it would be helpful to really go back and for me to have an opportunity to read the guidelines.
I do too.
In its whole, not just the snippet of the graphic. But when I do look at the graphic, I mean, it's still, the graphic with the addition is still really, the facade of the house is still even. It does have a little cutout for a differentiation between the new and the old. It doesn't look as much like, I guess it looks like that I'm looking at the other one. It does look like, it kind of looks like that third one on the graphic. So I feel like there's potential for us to go back and read the full section on additions, and potential for you to make additional modifications and try again. You know, we can continue and do that. Or if you're thinking that no matter what you do, the commission may not be comfortable with adding an addition, that's, you know, the potential as well.
Yeah, I'm not at a hard denial yet. I think there could be a path forward. And if I were in your position, I would probably take the continuance and meet with staff and see if they could get to a place where they're more comfortable proportionally with something, and then have it come back to us. But it is your time and it's your client's money, so can't tell you what to do. But that's just one commission.
And the other thing to consider is there may be a few extra people on the commission next time that have very different opinions, or some of us that may be quasi there, may be gone. So you don't know really how that may play out.
Funding coming up too, so maybe that.
What's that?
Funding's coming up, so maybe that.
What do you want to continue?
I mean, I think I'm hearing that there's really no reason not to continue. Even if we decide tomorrow that we would rather have a denial, no difference, right? We can always get ourselves off the docket, right?
I think that's the right move.
We do have a few things on here. I know that we've taken so much time that don't pertain to the addition. Would you guys like to separate that out, or do you want to continue everything? Or
I think that's up to you. Does it impact your project?
I'm
or-
good. I just know that you guys have an agenda and a timeline, and there are lots of people waiting, so.
Like the pavers in the backyard, that type of thing?
Yeah, well, no, like number 2. We also, let's see, we have number 2, east side.
I think staff suggested continuance of all the items, so I'm not sure what on number 2 was the.
That was
Issue.
the lighting on the exterior. I also have number 14. There's a bedroom that doesn't meet egress on the west elevation, and I need to make that window larger. And then there were 2 that we worked with staff and that it didn't need approval. Number 1 and number 4.
Dimensions of the building are important to us because we work within that 30% rear property wall line. So I want to ensure that if something is approved, it is based on accurate dimensions, and I'll need to have those in order to go there with that.
Can we make that a
Totally.
condition?
Pardon?
Can we make that a condition that she would, or do you need that first?
If you believe that you can tell from looking at the drawings as they currently exist without dimensions, that you're comfortable with those window locations either opening or closing, then I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Okay.
I have the window dimensions on the floor plans. Oh, sure.
And you could also approve it subject to review by staff. Confirmation of the dimensions, et cetera.
So can we just get clarification on what, tell me what items you are thinking we can get,
Yeah,
we can
talk
individually vote
about
on? I'm sorry, there's just a lot here. I know it's 2, and then what was the other one?
14.
14. It's replace second-story window of the west elevation with a larger window, and then it doesn't say we need to do that for egress, and we won't meet code.
And what was the issue, let's see, on number 2, why it was recommended for continuance?
We're still needing drawings.
Recommended additional
So
information.
there was a concern about the visibility of ceiling fans proposed on the front porch. We do sometimes see fans on front porches, but they're usually kind of flush mounted, so you're not really noticing them from the street. And I think these were shown to hang down more visibly. And then we typically don't recommend approval of gas lighting where we didn't historically have gas light fixtures. That's not terribly common at a lot of our structures. And Angela, chime in if there's something else I'm missing.
The other item for consideration for those front gas fixtures, regardless of whether they turn out to be gas or electric, is their size. And they are not illustrated on the front wall. As far as I know, they're 30 inches by 14, which is significantly larger than most that we see. Directed down, discreet, that sort of
I think
thing.
we just need to continue all items. I think there's still just a lot here. It sounds like staff still just needs, and you're going to meet with staff anyways, so
Yeah.
what I don't want to do is get mixed up here. I think that's the best plan on this one.
Yeah,
to
I would,
just
I would
continue
read
all
through
items.
the specific findings and recommendations for those items, and while you're meeting with staff, talk through them and their concern, and if there's any necessary modifications, bring those back to us when you return.
Some of those could probably be approved administratively too. Like if it's just replacing light fixtures, then if it's the right fixture and the right size, then that wouldn't even have to go through us.
I agree.
What commission hearing would you like this continued to? If we continue it to June 4th, you'll need to have all new materials by next Tuesday. I think you're probably going to want to do the July 2nd.
I mean, if you get it to a point where it could be administratively approved, could you separate those out if she,
Yes,
and then,
any of those items, like you said, the light fixtures, things like that can be approved by staff. We can do that as soon as we've got what we need to approve it. It doesn't
And
have
the
to wait.
dimensions, I'm sorry, go ahead. And the dimension for the window, they said that it was based on the room dimensions that you guys would approve the egress.
So the window does have to be approved by the commission. They could approve it with the condition that something be submitted to staff after the fact. I'm looking, so I was sharing my screen, not to go off track, I know we're trying to kind of wrap up, but is the pink on the second floor elevation, that's the window that is proposed to be. So we typically have more flexibility with changes to windows, removing, adding windows in the rear 30% of the wall. And that, to me, doesn't look like it's in the rear 30%. Now, the commission has the discretion to approve it anyway, but that's what we were looking for, is the length of that wall that the window is in from front to back, and then the distance from one end or the other to how far back that window is set.
Okay, then we can
That
just
guys are-
continue.
So is that window, what room is that window in right now?
closet.
Right now, it's in a closet. It will be in one of the bedrooms.
And there won't be another window in that
Right.
bedroom?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if it were existing, if it was a bedroom existing and it didn't meet code, I would say, yeah, it's a life safety issue, we need to allow for that. But I'm concerned with you redesigning the interior, knowing that it's existing and not being able to find a solution for a window for a bedroom that meets code.
I'm realizing, and we can just continue this. The window is on the west side. It's the one right next to the toilet in what's the existing primary bath.
Okay, so we'll continue.
But
Okay.
we can just,
Okay, well, I'm ready. You wanted which
which
meeting
one
did
do you want to go
yeah.
to?
So you said that if we do June.
If you do
then-
June, you're going to have all updated materials by end of day this coming Tuesday. I'm sorry, I had the
Yeah,
calendar
so
up.
June 10th would be our submittal deadline for continuances from,
You mean May
or no,
10th?
I'm sorry, I'm looking at
Wait,
June.
yeah.
May 13th would be our submittal deadline.
Oh, I'm sorry, you'll have a, I
Yeah,
don't know where
just
we
after-
are. We're on the 7th. Okay, yeah, next Tuesday, 13th.
The 13th would be the submittal deadline, and then it would be a June 4th meeting, and you've got the Memorial Day holiday in there in between, which pushes all our stuff back a day.
I think that we do July. I want to do due diligence with this being our last shot and to meet with Katie, Angela, everybody to do, I mean, it feels like it would be a rush job.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 250028 to the July meeting.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue, and we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that item has been continued to the July Commission hearing. Thank you. Next up, we have HPCA-25-00031 at 428 Northwest 34th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is an Edgemere Park Ward 2 consideration and possible action on application by Christopher Preston for certificate of appropriateness to replace fence and gate elective. I was kind of looking back over this and realized that one of the conditions I recommended for approval is probably not actually feasible. This is a proposal to replace 2 existing portions of fence, essentially one on each side of the house. Each of them have some unusual conditions. On the west side of the house, where's the concrete? That's the west, right?
That's the west side,
Okay,
yeah.
the concrete fence on the west starts all the way at the front wall of the house. And the applicant would like to go back in that same location, but with a typical wood 6-foot-tall fence. The guidelines say for administrative approval that it would have to be set back 40% of the length of the side yard. When the applicant looked at where that would be, it would put it right at a side door. They'd prefer to keep the side door within the fenced yard and not have the fence go back farther than the door. But to the side of the door is a set of steps, and then there's a window, and then there's a gable, and then there's another window. It's just a very complicated area to find a good spot to put the fence. So they could perhaps pull it back a little bit so that it's not right on that front corner, but I don't think it's reasonable for us to tell them that it needs to be set back that 40% length. So
Yeah, that could be a unique circumstance, right?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
This is exactly what my house was like, and we came in with a unique circumstance because it's existing where it butts the neighbor's house, but also if you moved it back to the 40%, it was like right in the middle of a doorway. So I am very sympathetic for how it is set up.
Yeah,
But
you all
same.
may want to, if you feel like it needs to come back a little bit so it's not
So where
flush
do
with
you
the
want it?
wall, or,
I want to take down where it is exactly and put up in the exact same spot,
Oh,
just a 6-foot wooden fence. So not changing anything locationally, it's just that I had to come here because of the 40% rule, yeah.
I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a bummer to have to ask him to cut out like 2 feet of hedge and, you know,
I mean, it
work all that
exists.
just for like that much.
Where he's
back.
just changing materials.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
And honestly, the
I think
wood
it's
fence
pretty
would
easy.
probably look better.
Yeah.
so then on the other side, which is also unusual, in the yard there is a chain link fence and then a concrete curb retaining wall, and then below the grade of the yard is the wood fence. So currently that's an 8-foot fence, but it's about a foot to a foot and a half below the grade of the yard. If they were to put in a 6-foot fence there from within the yard, it would seem like it was between 4 and 5 feet tall. So they're
Yeah,
asking.
since everything goes down towards Edgemere Park where our house sits above my neighbor's house, so we'd kind of be looking directly into his house.
I think we've approved a lot of these with grading issues. I have no
It's a
problem
unique
with that.
circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and would you mind just, for the record, stating your name and address?
Yeah, we kind of
Thanks.
missed that. Chris Preston, I'm at 428 Northwest 34th.
Okay, okay. I'm assuming you're the applicant.
I am.
Okay, okay. Commissioners, do we have any other questions for the applicant? No. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
So in this case, you all, it sounds like, would want to approve it with the findings in the staff report, but not the conditions and a unique circumstance related to the configuration and topography of the site, something along those lines.
Yes, right. I mean, for me.
What she said.
Yeah, so on that note, I will make a motion to approve HPCA 25003 with the specific findings in the staff report and the unique circumstance that the configuration of the home, the existing fence locations, and the topography are unique, allowing this to be appropriate.
It's 00031.
00031. Thank you. Did I
Okay,
just
we've
stop?
got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, this item has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next we have HPCA-25-00036 at 1005 Northwest 18th Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Kelly Whelan for a certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace fence elective, 2, construct retaining wall elective, and 6, replace railing at porch and balcony. This is the backyard backs up to a closed alley and then to a parking lot. They have kind of a fence within a fence and would like to remove that fence and move it all to the actual rear property line on the closed alley and construct a retaining wall there. We've had some discussion with the applicant about that because this appears to not be closed and vacated, they may need a revocable permit to put a retaining wall and a fence in that location. If for some reason they couldn't get that revocable permit and needed to make changes, then that would have to come back to us. But given the location of it, backing up to a parking lot, staff feels like the increased height is probably appropriate, and the guidelines address taller fences when you're adjacent to less compatible uses. The other item is the porch railing. The railing on the porch and the balcony appear to be quite old, if not original to the house. We have some older photos that show the railing, and it is in poor condition and needs to be extensively repaired, if not replaced. The applicant has proposed to replace it. Staff did recommend a continuance because the replacement's not quite a match for what's there, and we think that it would be possible to find something that more closely matched the railing. It's a fairly decorative railing that we think is an important feature to retain if possible.
Katie, thank you. Okay, is the applicant present?
Yeah, Kelly Whalen at 1005 Northwest 18th Street.
Okay, thank you. Tell us about your project.
So I talked with my contractor today, and I think we can keep the balusters for the porch. I think what really is not repairable is the top and bottom. So we'll cut off the balusters and reattach them to new pieces of wood on the top and bottom.
Does he feel confident he could just replicate those pieces as they are?
Yeah, because they're 2x6s that have some curve to them, so that's not hard to do. So that's in terms of the look. The other concern of especially the balcony, is how low it is. So there's another house that I shared an example of that's on Hudson and 14th.
I think it's 500 Northwest 14th.
Yeah, and it looks like they raised the top and then just put a piece of wood on the bottom so that it's higher, and it's that 36.
Katie, how do we handle that when it is an original actual porch that was meant to be used, but it is below code? I know we've not encountered it very often, but.
Yeah, so the guidelines talk about, fix everything for as long as you can so you don't have to bring it up to code. But obviously at some point when certain things are replaced, code kicks in, safety concerns kick in.
And the intent of being able to use it kicks in.
Yes, and there are lots of good examples from tax credit projects and all sorts of rehabilitation projects where a railing that was too low to be safe to meet code has like a top rail added on top to provide that extra height, or another bottom rail added on the bottom, or there's more space inserted at the bottom. There's various ways to keep the proportion of those balusters, which is kind of the most prominent visual feature of it, and just add some height at the top and or at the bottom to make it safe.
Do we have a preference on how that, I mean, it's really nice to think of this being able to be used in the way it was built to be used. So do we have a preference on either of those scenarios, or?
I'm not finding the example that you mentioned as I'm scrolling through.
It's in my application. It is the 500 Northwest.
Yeah, it's 500 Northwest 14th. It's Jennifer Craig's house. It's on the southwest corner. It backs up to that
I
parking
was
lot.
using that as an example of the square balusters, but I think we can keep those balusters.
What is the existing height right now?
Oh, I don't remember. 27? Yeah, I mean, you could just
It
go
looks delicate.
Yeah, it's pretty far off from the required. Yeah.
Do you, I guess, have a preference on whether, if we were to recommend, increasing height at bottom or top?
I think I like it on the bottom. I like how it looks on
It's
her
more
house.
historically, you have space at the bottom anyway. Like the rail, like the whole balustrade is.
I think
kind
it's
of
less
up.
obvious for the street,
Which
personally.
it helps with
Yeah,
drainage
so like
too.
that.
So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, that one.
So yeah, I think tweaking those proportions at the bottom so that it's the right height, but you're keeping the balusters, I think is a
that
successful
something
solution.
we could do agreed upon conditions? Then
Yeah.
I would be great with that.
Okay. Let me ask, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there being none. Commissioners, any last thoughts or questions, or do we have a motion for these items?
Well, is there anything on the back, or are we good on the back, the fence and whatnot?
I have no questions about the back. I think it's a pretty clear case of having a unique circumstance. With, transitional zones, that happens a lot.
I'll go ahead and make a motion on HPCA 25-00036 to approve items 1, 2, and 3 with the specific findings and unique circumstances noted in the staff report, and the condition that you get with staff on what your new railing design is.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve. We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Those items have been approved. Thank you. Okay, next we have HPCA-25-00037 at 121 Northwest 17th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Talon Hall for certificate of appropriateness to 2, repair porch piers and columns and porch foundation wall required, 7, replace porch railing required, and 8, replace porch steps required. So this is work that had already been initiated and is before you kind of retroactively to seek approval for what's been done. There has been parging removed from the brick. You can see how it appeared previously. That's been removed and the brick exposed. So the applicant, we need to consult with the applicant and the commission on what the next appropriate step is regarding that, because the brick is not in great condition. Changes made to the wooden portions of the porch columns, and I believe a column added where it wasn't existing previously, and then replacement of the porch steps. So the applicant is present and can discuss what's been done so far and what they hope to do moving forward, and we can try to answer any questions.
Okay, and just for the record, please state your name and address.
Yeah, Talon Hole, 121 Northwest 17th Street.
Okay, great, thank you. Tell us about the project.
So purchased a house for my family and young family, to move in, and been learning a lot during the process. Really liked the neighborhood a lot. My grandmother lived down the street on 17th as well. And now just kind of figuring out how to navigate and wanting to make sure I do things the correct way. And so yeah, when we purchased the house had been sitting, it seemed to be for a minute, or at least not worked on, or not kind of neglected in a sense. And so the contractor I was working with at the time, I had instructed him to kind of get us prepared for the process to make the porch stable. I mean, there was wood rot throughout the railing and as well as the porch floor. When it comes to the parging, I think is what Katie mentioned it, or I've also considered it like stucco but I have really no preference either way. Of course, I'd love to have the exposed brick, but if we have to go back to what it was when I purchased the house, I'm completely fine with that. When I spoke to Angela, she explained to me that she kind of was giving me a lot of history on the neighborhood, and she said that wasn't necessarily historic, but it was there. So like the parging on the brick. So kind of right now I'm at a standstill. Oh, also the steps I think are proposed to put concrete steps instead of the wood steps going up to the porch. So really just trying to figure out, one, if we have to go back to the wood steps, we will, but we would like to have concrete steps. And then when it comes to the actual porch, just like Katie had mentioned as well, just kind of, we started work, wanted to make sure that we were doing things the right way. So we've halted work, and now we're here. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, what questions do you have for the applicant?
Well, I had one for staff, but I can table mine until Katie comes back.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll just ask and see if anybody else knows before she comes back. There's a lot of reference to missing documentation of existing and proposed dimensions, and I just kind of would like a more specific understanding of what's missing and how it's impactful.
And the columns, I guess I don't know if we talked about the columns much, but the columns I just want to put back how they were, just with wood that's not rotted. And
What's the motivation for adding the third column?
Just there was a metal railing, an old metal railing that was kind of, bent up in pieces. So we, right now we can, I've noticed that throughout the neighborhood, there's certain people that maybe have put like a 4x4 and painted it, or like cedar posts or something like that. I really have no preference. I would like for it to be, what the neighborhood likes ultimately. Right now I have, obviously the old columns. I had my carpenter make new columns to just install as soon as we're approved, if we're approved. But as far as the third column goes, it was just for, stability down the road. But Angela kind of gave me some history as well that there typically wasn't a third column. And when the houses were built, there was built 2 columns. The only motive, if we were to put a third column, would be for the integrity of the porch.
And we had that one come up a couple of months ago on a house on the 100 block, I think of 19th, where the same case was made, like, hey, we need a third column for structural support, and we said no because, it wasn't original to the house, and so kind of the proper solution there would be to put a new beam in if you felt that you were, and it may not be lacking in structural integrity. Yeah. Katie, one thing I asked while you had stepped out was there's just a lot of reference to missing measurements and documentation, but it's not very specific, so I kind of wanted to understand what was missing and what the relevance of it was.
So on the repair porch piers and columns, I think, one was, I think, just determining whether or not it was appropriate to put the parging back or not, but then the method of how it was removed, and kind of the condition of the brick. On the railings, do we believe that the existing railings are deteriorated beyond repair? Do we have sufficient documentation that the commission agrees with that, and then it's appropriate to replace the railings? We do have photos and dimensions of the existing railings. So that's one of the things that is called out as missing, is just documentation of the, or may or may not be sufficient, is documentation of the condition. And then,
sorry, may or may not be sufficient documentation?
Or may
what we sufficiently deteriorate?
What we have so far on the railings, as far as whether or not they're sufficiently deteriorated to be replaced. And then I think just complete dimensions for all elements of the porch that are being repaired or replaced: the steps, the railings, the brick piers, et cetera. And I'm going to look at Angela, because Angela worked on this one, so she may have more specific. They're asking what are the specific pieces of documentation and materials that are missing on this one that the applicant needs to provide. Documentation of the condition of features that are going to be replaced, all the dimensions on everything that's being replaced.
The applicant has provided a significant number of photographs of the property prior to the work having been done. What I do not have are dimensions for existing and proposed columns and piers. The materials list that I have for the wood products are inappropriate, but I believe that the property owner can fully address that without any issues whatsoever. The real changes that are of concern to me, am I puffing?
No.
Are the piers to either side of the steps, which appear to significantly elevate themselves in height. Whether or not that's appropriate, whether or not it is consistent, I do not know, because the photographs that I have prior to this work were not very clear. They really only looked like they were 2 bricks high or something. So if the piers to either side of the steps are in fact increasing in height, it very well may be justifiable. I just need someone to say that it is justifiable.
Is there other than a picture you have that's unclear, I mean, is there a reason to think they would have only been 2 bricks high? That seems pretty odd.
I took a stroll via Google Map down the street, and as far as I can tell, my first impression was, oh, these are broken and they're wrong.
Right.
But as far as I can tell, they tend to fairly consistently in this area be approximately the same height as the top step. So I do not currently know where the top step would be.
Okay, but we would not require him to go back to 2 bricks high. Is that what you said at the beginning, that you said the picture indicated they were 2 bricks high? Or did you say 2 steps high?
2 bricks high is what they appeared to be in the photograph, and that should be included in your packet. So 2 bricks high with a concrete cap sitting on it, that may or may not.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes, how odd.
They may be broken. I don't know.
We're talking about those little.
Yeah, they actually just look like they're sitting on bricks.
Well, and that was the whole deal, is when you drive around the neighborhood, you see that those steps are, majority of the houses are well put together, well kept. The steps aren't sitting on just random stones like they were. So I had them put back how the rest of the neighborhood looks. And that's what the previous photos were. But yes, as Angela said, when I purchased the house, the steps were 100% just sitting with the concrete cap on a few stones.
Are we positive there was anything brick there? I mean, did it have, is there any reason to actually think that those stucco columns didn't just go all the way to the ground beside the steps? So we have no knowledge, so basically we just need to decide what's in front of us, whether it's appropriate or
Yeah,
not.
I mean, it wouldn't be historic to just have concrete, like that's not a condition that exists, just a concrete thing sitting on the ground
No,
on
not that.
every
I
side.
just mean if none of that was there, like, are we positive any of that was there, or did somebody just,
That's the question.
add it when they added that metal third column that was never originally there?
Right.
So, I mean, if we have no knowledge of it, our only job is to decide if this is appropriate or not, because nobody has any knowledge of it.
Right.
I think we can assume we don't have any knowledge of it.
I feel the same.
So if what you've put back in place is what is more historic and the houses around you, then yeah, I think that's.
So we need step dimensions to determine if it is, because these are typically, the top of this would be level with the top of that top step.
Yeah.
And so we need dimensions on your steps to make sure that the work you've done here is going to be appropriate.
Okay.
Is this a world where we could move towards approval with getting that information to staff? Yes. Okay. I mean, they brought a baby.
Okay.
I sympathize, it's hard when somebody's done work and you just don't have any inkling or proof of what was there. I mean, it's hard to determine what goes back.
Yeah, I think like we could work towards approving the piers. We work with staff. I think the columns is hard because we don't ever really approve the third column. That
And we don't have to approve the third column. I'm not asked, I'm just basically I'm open to whatever you guys like.
No, and we appreciate that.
What you
we know
guys
you
like,
didn't.
I
We know you
like.
didn't have knowledge of guidelines. Things were started, and we appreciate you coming in and really wanting to do what's right. But yeah, I do think on the column that's not something we would approve because that little metal piece was just fully decorative. That was never structural. So if you have significant deflection or issues with that overhang, then yeah, you would just need a new beam or some other solution that is hidden.
And I don't believe that the decorative metal piece was doing anything for
No,
the
it wasn't.
structure. And so I don't think there's any problem going back with the two columns. I just, it's something that we spoke about, and if it was something that we could have done, I would have put it, but if it's not, we'll go back with the other two, and let's say in a couple years or however long, if it becomes a problem that I need to come back and see you guys, then we can cross that bridge when we get there. But completely fine with the two columns, as that is actually, my carpenter's only made two columns. I don't even have a third.
Perfect. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think most of this would still likely need to be continued, just so we can see what it will actually be like, if that makes sense.
Well,
we need to see more documentation for the railings, to make sure that they are significantly deteriorated, and then actual dimensions of what's going back in its place. And I don't believe that we would usually approve replacing wood steps with concrete. So we would need to see wood steps and application with those dimensions as well. So I think we're probably moving towards a continuance, but I just want you to have all the information of what we would need to move towards an approval.
So yeah, just to clarify on the handrails, the handrails were definitely beyond repair. I don't have those handrails anymore, so I definitely want to just be honest and upfront. Those handrails, just like a lot of the rest of the house, were very rotted. Now putting the handrails back, they're going to be exactly back how they were. I just completely stopped work until I met with you all. But the handrails are going to go back solid wood, exactly how they were. And I've given Angela the information on the handrails as well. And then when it comes to the steps, so we're just trying to get rid of, or I can understand that there's no concrete steps and we could put the wood steps in. Just want to make sure that I'm under the same page of everything else moving forward. Are we all on the same page?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the balustrade, then you don't have the balustrade. But if we can match as closely what we see in the pictures as possible, then I think that's all we can do. We just need to see what those dimensions are.
So the dimensions on the columns?
I mean,
The
technically, we need
railings.
dimensions of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to see, you know, your balustrade, like how wide are your pickets and what is the spacing in between and how
Yeah.
tall is it? What is the top rail? What is the bottom rail? Things like that.
The railings themselves, you do have dimensions on. He has a sketch in there somewhere for that.
Yeah, I think, and I may have misunderstood this a minute ago, but I thought Angela was saying she felt confident that she could get to a place of administratively approving a lot of this. No?
Either administratively approving them or
Or with the
approving
agreed-upon
them
conditions.
contingent upon him
Okay.
submitting the documentation.
Gotcha. I mean, I think it's very clear what we're asking, so I would certainly feel comfortable with that versus having him come back. I mean, he can always come back if he doesn't get it to you, but it sounds like we have a very clear direction on what we're asking for here.
So even with the columns, that could be administratively approved if he goes back to what was.
I think you all can approve it today with the condition that the details and documentation be submitted to staff.
Got it.
And that there are only two, not three.
And that there's only two
And the
columns.
stairs are wood.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like a lot, but we're very, very close on all of it.
Yeah, and I've worked great with Angela on getting her anything that she's asked, and I can make sure that we get any dimensions on the columns, and that sounds like the only other thing I'd need dimensions on is the steps.
Steps.
Okay.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Yep, right, I'm sorry, right behind you. Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Brent Wall, 126 Northwest 18th Street. I did not plan on speaking or saying anything today. This house is visible from our house on 18th Street. I'm thrilled to meet new neighbors, and I'm thrilled that a family is moving into this house. We've seen it deteriorate for years, so it's great to see it coming back. That being said, when things started to be worked on, it kind of raised the red flag, and the Heritage Hills group kind of picked it up. There's probably three things that I think need to be added to this continuance for you all to see. There is a new back door on the house. It could be temporary, but it does not appear to be what we would typically see on a historic building on the back of the house. Front door, if there's any changes to the front door, we don't know if there's going to be any changes to windows. So just putting that into record that those things need to be thought about. This house also had a new roof put on. Specifically, I haven't had a chance to go look, but the decking on the exposed rafter tails is typically a tongue and groove for that first 24 inches or whatever until it hits the house. I haven't had a chance to go over there and look and see if that was replaced. I'm sorry.
Do we have any?
Okay. Because sometimes if they do like an oriented strand board, you can actually see that material up underneath there. So it's just these little detailed things that probably need to be picked up in this application just so that we're being very thorough. It may not have had that tongue and grooving originally, but my house is a pretty similar construction, and it does have that. Some people would just do like a 1x4 pine on there that just gives that kind of that groove in there. But anything is better than the OSB being visible. So again, I'm trying to be helpful in this process, and hopefully we can get this thing built back really well, and everybody would be really proud of it. So.
I think what he's telling you is you can call him and he'll come over there and tell you what to do.
Yeah, just so, yeah, you're more than welcome to come by my house. But yeah, the underneath OSB is definitely not visible. I haven't even replaced any of that, so everything's the same as it was. I was very, very adamant about making sure that I worked and followed the right rules, even when it came to the gutters that were administratively approved, were not attached to the rafter tails. And when it comes to the back door, yes, there's a back door. The back door that we found when I purchased the house, it was flipped upside down. You could push the door, it wasn't even able to get in. So now I've just put a door there in the meantime, as I've been at Dead People's stuff to look for doors that could, fit that size. And then if not, then we're gonna have to go with like a Simpson door from Forest. Like a wood door from Forest or something. But when it comes to just and the actual front door, I've learned wasn't historic, but it was the same front door that's been there, before I bought the house. Not the door that we're going to keep on the house. It's absolutely ugly. So we're going to make sure that we find a door that works for my lady and I, but as you guys know, it takes time, so.
Yeah, just make sure to come back to us for any doors and windows.
Absolutely, so, yeah, 100%. Once we find the.
Those are things that can be administratively approved if, they're within the guidelines. So that wouldn't even always necessarily have to come back to us, right, Katie? Yeah. So it should be easy for you if they're within the guidelines, but just make sure you submit those.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Commissioners, do we have a motion on any of these items?
Yes, but I just have a quick comment. I'm just reading through the neighborhood comments on this one, and don't get me wrong, I get it. They've called out that, hey, there's been work done without a CA, and this is problematic, particularly in the 100 block. It happens over and over, definitely. But these comments always state, hey, there's prominent signage on every corner. This has been an ordinance for decades, and that's absolutely right. But there are neighborhoods all over the United States that have historic neighborhood signs, and it does not mean there's any legal protection. One realtor, one random person put 4 out-of-state people just into Heritage Hills last month. They don't have a clue. And so I just want to make sure that we're not, these beautiful brass placards don't always denote that there's actually a legal implication to some of this stuff. So I just kind of sympathize and wish that my industry also was required to do a better job of telling people. I certainly do, but just food for thought on those comments.
That's a good point, because Gatewood, Class and 10 Penn, Central Park, those all have historic neighborhood signs, and none of those fall within HP.
Just 42nd Street Place has placards that they ordered. It's great. It's beautiful. I just, it by no means indicates that there is an order of law that you may or may not know about. And I just think there are probably ways for the city to be clearer about that with residents
Absolutely.
And placards.
And to kind of comment on that as well, I had spoke to the code enforcer multiple times. I'm not sure who, but there's multiple people that called in on the job. I had a code enforcer come out almost every day, back to back to back. And he said, Talon, frankly, this is a waste of my time. I hope that you go down and meet with Angela. He goes, there's got to be somebody with a clipboard driving around and saying, doop, 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 doop. And so at that point, I stopped everything, went and met with Angela, put in a very lengthy packet, and just want to make sure that I'm doing everything the right way. The last thing that I want is to move into a neighborhood with my family and have people with their binoculars, kind of,
No, for sure, we're on your side, and we're just saying we sympathize that you didn't know, and we appreciate you coming in and trying to do things correctly.
Absolutely. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Commissioners, do we have a motion on these items?
I need to make sure I'm remembering exactly. Okay. I'm struggling with how to word this correctly. Okay, regarding HPCA 25-00037, items 2, 7, and 8, I motion to approve with the specific findings noted in the staff report and with the agreed upon conditions that the applicant will work with staff to submit all documentation and measurements for deterioration and replacements, that there will be only 2 front porch columns replaced, that the steps will be wooden rather than concrete. Is that everything?
So I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve with conditions, and we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, those items have been approved. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
Okay, next up, we have HPCA-25-00040 at 709 Northwest 42nd Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Crown Heights Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Michael Rubenstein for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct new garage elective. The commission initially saw an application to make repairs to this garage. After that work started, you then got an application to demolish the garage. That was approved a couple of months ago based on what they found once they got into the structure. And now they are back before you with an application to replace the garage. It is going in the same footprint as the historic garage. The garage did have a side porch that is being enclosed. We actually think that was probably originally enclosed as like a little quarters
There was a drain
because
in
of the wall that's there, and then at some point someone made that a covered patio. So really staying right with the footprint that it's always been. We have a recommendation of continuance because we were missing the height of the proposed structure and a documentation of a garage door that meets the conditions. I think these are things that you could have the applicant submit to staff as a condition of approval. We just try to make sure we're getting what we need, as part of documenting the application.
Apparently everyone's asking for these door specs right now because we're in queue to get that door spec to you. It just hasn't arrived prior to the meeting.
And just for the record, I'm sorry, name and address.
Again?
Yeah.
Oh, Holly
Yeah.
Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. Again, you're going to hear from me again. But, the major thing, I think the reason that this structure was that point of, it just speaks right there. It's like, we're going to fix all these water issues, going right back with the same structure, same footprint. I'm happy to get that stuff to staff, and yeah, we'll get it fixed up. Is there any questions? No, not anymore.
I mean, I'm comfortable with an administrative approval if staff is, or with an agreed upon conditions if staff is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't know. I'll get it to you. I'm sorry. I honestly didn't see that note until like today.
Members of the public.
Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there being none. Commissioners, any other questions for the applicant, comments?
I left my red pen.
I'll make a
I'm
motion
looking
to
at it.
approve HPCA 25-00040 with the specific findings noted in the staff report and the conditions that the applicant get with staff on the garage door documentation and the height of the garage.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve with conditions and a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. That item has been approved with conditions. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have HPCA-25-00041 at 230 Northwest 16th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Heritage Hills Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Brent Wall, Lod Studio for Bryce Ward for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct pergola elective, 2, construct wood fence and gate elective, 3, remove steel vehicular gate and install pedestrian gate and fence elective, 4, construct steel trellis elective, 5, remove brick patio and reuse pavers at pergola elective, 6, construct addition elective, 7, remove brick edging and install steel edging elective, 8, construct concrete pass and install steps at rear entry elective, and 9, remove portion of concrete driveway and replace with lawn panel elective. And we've confirmed the lawn panel just means sod, not turf or some other alternative material. Staff has recommended approval of the pergola fence, the converting of the vehicular gate to a pedestrian gate and fence, the reuse of the brick patio pavers at the pergola, and the removing the portion of driveway and replacing that with grass. We did recommend a continuance on the steel trellis. There were concerns raised in the staff report about the visibility and kind of prominent location of that feature and what the guidelines say regarding adding trellises in prominent locations. And then continuance of the addition. I think there's just some documentation there that needs clarification on various details of that proposal. And we recommended continuance of the brick edging to be replaced with a steel edging. That edging comes quite far down into the lawn and is not a typical historic landscape material that we see. And that steel is not something that's addressed in the guidelines as being appropriate.
Okay, Katie, thank you. The applicant is present. And please, again, for the record, state your name and address.
Brent Wall, 220 Northwest 13th Street, Suite 1, Oklahoma City.
Okay, talk to us about the project.
You're probably not going to be surprised that it's a corner lot in Heritage Hills, which I seem to bring to you quite often, fortunately. I would want to start this off by basically item 6 is continuation is absolutely appropriate at this point. Homeowners do have an architect that they're working with. They're trying to work through some better elevations and roof lines and things like that need to come to you all. So that one we can just kind of strike off the list. On the steel trellis, it's one of those things where, if you can see in this image, there's not a lot of room on that east side. There's a retaining wall. Typically, we would want to try to handle this with some sort of tall plant material. It's just really tight over there. The homeowner was wishing to maybe get a little bit of a screen between that kind of sun Florida room and the neighbor's house. It's not a hill that we want to die on. If you all have, some other recommendation that you think would be better. The only real point I wanted to make is that the guidelines don't support these steel trellises, but if you look around Heritage Hills, you will actually see quite a few of them that were constructed in the past. They typically were actually constructed out of like black iron, like gas pipe with threaded connections and like infilled wire mesh that was more of a fencing material. So there's still a few around, and a lot of times you'll see them sort of in that frame of a front porch, like covered front porch, because a lot of times when you're on those front porches, you can just look down and see, 4 or 5 different houses, and so they would kind of put those up in between. Not arguing for my point here, but just like, it's just good to know that there are precedents out there in the neighborhood for people trying to kind of go vertical in a tight space with some sort of metal kind of structure to do that. Here it's a pretty good size element, and it's so I could see where there is some concern there. So again, it's not a deal breaker. So if you have any feedback on that, we would certainly welcome that.
I just have a question. I mean, it's just a means to support organic matter, right?
Right.
Okay,
yeah.
So I guess I've just never thought of those as permanent and something that we really have purview over, I guess. I mean, apparently we do. I've just never, when I've seen them, never really thought about them as impacting particularly no more so than somebody grooming their plants in some strange or different or elaborate pattern, I suppose.
Is it like a welded wire mesh or more like cables?
It's a welded wire mesh, yeah.
How is it installed, into the ground?
Just embedded with concrete in the ground.
So like fence post style?
Yeah. Now, you're probably gonna, I should be up here totally advocating for what my client wants, but I think I think the fact that you all came back to us and said, we have a concern with this, kind of maybe validates some of the concerns we had. So I just wanted to have a conversation about, just what this is. But I will say, if you are looking to the west from Robinson, this element would kind of hide that very architectural kind of sunroom that kind of comes out. Looking straight on, probably not much, but from the side view, there would probably be a little bit of concealment of that really beautiful architectural element. So, again, if you all, I'm happy to move on from this item if you don't have any more comments on it.
Yeah, people put in all sorts of landscape screening features, and we don't review landscape material generally. I think the height, this is 10 feet tall by 26 feet long, just the size of it. If it was like a little small panel kind of thing that was just going to be a pretty, support the vines growing up. But staff felt like this was a lot, right up at the front of the house, so.
Okay. And we're happy to kind of take another stab at it and bring it back to you and see if there's, if there's something that works a little better.
Katie, is it about, like, if you came back with something that was a more appropriate material but still the same size, like, would that be okay? Or is it about the height of it and how much would be visible regardless of material?
I think it's kind of everything in combination. I mean, it's a 10-foot tall by 26-foot long metal screen that will look lovely if landscaping is successfully grown on it and maintained. If it's not, then it's a 10-foot tall metal screen that's set in concrete. That's essentially a fence, and we would never support a fence at this height and in this location. So we have to kind of think about it this way, and maybe there's a solution that doesn't involve a supportive structure that's just trees or landscape material of some other type that's just planted and grown there and not.
Well, there is a very particular problem at this corner of the house in that there is a tree there that, if it's taken out, impacts the structural integrity of that room. And so it is like a very creative little corner. There's kind of only so many ways to.
Yeah, it's really tight over there, and we're trying to get just a little kind of gardener's path through there. So it was just kind of, it was a last resort to have to try to go vertical on that.
Let's talk about your steel edging.
Steel edging. Okay, so the brick borders that are there, they need to be repaired. And I think I would start this out by saying that any new edging, we could totally do a brick border that looked historic. The problem with the stuff in the front is that it's just really small. It just doesn't allow a lot of space to put plant material. Needs to see how it just feels very out of scale with the house. And so I think this is sort of an interesting problem in that, we know that our clients are asking us to reduce turf because they don't want to water and mow it. And so in this case, we could totally leave that brick edging where it is and then create I guess the question is, steel edging is used all the time. And so I'm kind of confused as to why that would not be considered an appropriate. And in the past, I don't know that that's actually a reviewable item. I mean, I see people put steel edging all the time without any kind of review, so.
Yeah, I know we had one case in which it abutted the public easement on the sidewalk, like truly abutted, and that we felt was a little bit of a safety concern.
Yeah.
But I don't recall ever reviewing steel edging.
Yeah.
It seems very temporary.
But I remember the one you're talking about because that was also a lot.
It was Brent.
project that Jessica was in.
Yeah.
And I think, like you guys mentioned, like there are kids riding their bike or whatever. And
But it was,
they fell, but
it was raised almost like a retaining wall where that was.
it was a little bit taller because it was
Yeah.
this
It's on a big slope.
sloped.
Yeah, it was to keep, I think it was
But in this instance, it doesn't bother me.
This,
Yeah, bonds
feels
help.
temporary. You can pull steel
Yeah.
edging out like that and
Yeah.
it's gone. Just like a plant, you can pull a plant out of your planter.
Yeah, I didn't know we reviewed it.
Is the issue that the removal of the brick is the issue? 'Cause
No,
it
I
is-
don't think the concern is so much that the brick itself and its location is historically significant. I think it's that this steel edging does come all the way down to the sidewalk on both ends. So you're right at the sidewalk with a very low metal edging that is maybe not always, so it's not visible, which in a way is a good thing, but also is a bad thing as far as like you trip on it, that sort of thing.
So
And then just that we have, I think, language in the guidelines about landscape edging and materials, and it talks about brick and other natural products.
So I think sort of the middle ground is that we're not seeing the plan view here, but we just kind of have this sort of large kind of sweeping arc across there. If we did that in a brick, would that be considered appropriate? Because the steel edging is, I would rather do it in brick. I think it would look much better. So that, my understanding has always been that, the landform and the kind of roll down to the sidewalk is, you don't mess with that. And so we would basically just bring that brick and then kind of roll it down to the sidewalk and not adjust any of that existing grade, so.
Sorry, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding, where we're saying it comes down to the sidewalk, we're just talking about where it meets the sidewalk, correct? We're
Right,
not
just the
talking
edge
about
of
it
it.
running
Yeah.
30 feet on the sidewalk. Okay, I thought I was maybe missing a giant piece of this.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, we're asking for that. We would need to provide that material to you,
Yeah,
but it would
gotcha.
be as close to what is, and possibly, if we could remove what is there, we could possibly reuse as much of that as we could as well, so.
I'm very unoffended by the steel edging, but. Yeah.
But if we need to continue this item, we can come back to you with much more information so you feel good about that decision.
Katie, can you just enlighten us, since we were all seemingly, I feel okay about the steel edging because I didn't know we actually reviewed it. I thought the only reason we reviewed it before is because it was actually presented as a retaining wall. So can you walk us through why it's a concern?
Landscape, so there's a lot of landscape stuff that gets done that we don't review, either because it doesn't require a permit, even though we technically should review it, or, oh my God. So there's landscape items that get done that we don't review. Sometimes that's because we actually don't require review because it's something that is just placed loose on the ground. You can pick it up and walk away with it. It's not permanent in any way. There are guidelines for landscape edging in front yards where it's visible, and how tall it should be and what it should be made of. So when we have a guideline for an item, we infer from that we are intended to review that item, and it's under administrative approval. So there's administrative approval guidelines for landscape edging materials. It does not include steel as an appropriate landscape edging material, so therefore this is in front of you.
I see. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to know.
Well, I'm fine with approving it. It doesn't offend me.
But I could drive around with a clipboard and turn in all my neighbors with steel.
Yes, yes.
All of us.
Well,
I
Katie,
just-
let me ask that
as
though.
us-
If there is steel edging that's out there that's been done in landscaping projects, because I don't ever remember, except I know which one you're talking of.
But it was
talking about
this
steel
tall.
edging. So technically, is it if you are doing a landscape project in your yard, your front yard, and you're going to put in steel edging, are we learning that technically you should come before the commission?
I would say yes. I would
Okay.
say technically that's not something that the guidelines say
Okay.
is, yeah.
Okay, so is that, then if it's existing out there in these HP neighborhoods, is that a code violation?
Ask the guy
I'm
with the
just trying
binoculars.
to, I'm trying to, trying to wrap my head around.
Sure. And
'cause-
it's, so, under administrative approval, I was trying to scroll to this language. It says landscape elements such as stone or masonry edging materials for raised planting beds shall not exceed 18 inches in height in front or side yards and shall match and complement the design scale and details of such elements historically found within the district. So, it's just kind of one of those things that if people are just putting in a flower bed, they're not going to call us, they're not going to ask. But when it's part of a larger project and it's more of a transformation of the site, we're going to look at what materials are proposed and whether or not those materials appear to be supported by the guidelines.
Okay.
So my
Understand
top
that.
priority
Okay.
is not turning in people's metal landscape edging on their flower
Okay.
beds. But if you ask the question, I'm going to say, oh, the guidelines say it should be brick or stone.
I would be in favor of it if it were brick too. I just, to me, that feels entirely impermanent and not impactful in any way. So I just would not.
I'm sorry, the steel edging or the
Either.
brick?
I mean, whatever that is, just doesn't feel to me that it in any way transforms the intent of the house or the space in a negative way that's out of sync with the neighborhood. So I would not be opposed to either one. Should you go back and say, hey, we think brick is a little bit better here, I mean, that certainly feels fitting to me too, but the steel edging doesn't seem glaringly historically inappropriate to me.
I think we can just continue items 4 and 6 and approve everything else.
Let me jump back to what those are.
4 was the steel trellis.
Yeah.
And then 6 was the addition that he said was still, he'd worked on.
I feel comfortable with that if staff does and if everybody else does.
Brent, what do you want to continue it to, June or July?
June.
June.
Will the addition come back as a part of your CA or will it be filed separately?
Are we turning in documents yesterday?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
So practically yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a little bit out of my control.
But you could remove that and they could just apply for a separate one
Yeah.
if they were starting a new process.
But having a deadline, I can lean on them to try to get all of it to you.
Cool.
The house plans as well.
It's not the most earth-shattering addition, so I would think that it would be.
I had one other thought on the trellis, that if it aligned with the guidelines for a fence, no more than 6 feet tall, setback 6 feet from the front of the house, and it's a transparent metal material, and then they can grow whatever they want to on it, that might be something that staff could support.
Okay.
I think the height and being all the way at the front wall is.
Does the curve of that sunroom start? I mean, it doesn't. You'd have to only just cover a tiny bit of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great middle ground. I think we can totally do something with that. That'll look good.
Cool. Well, I will make a motion on HPCA 25-00041 to continue items 4 and 7 to the June 4th meeting. No, 4 and 6, sorry. 4 and 6.
Second.
Okay, we've got kidding. There we go. We have a motion to continue items, I want to make sure I have this right, 4 and 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay, to the June meeting?
Yes.
Okay, we've got a second as well. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, those 2 items have been continued.
Thank you all.
Oh,
I
I
think
gotta
we've
make
got
an
others.
approval
Yeah.
motion. And then I will
Rest of
make a
it.
motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, with the specific findings. Yes, with the specific findings noted in the staff report.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the remaining items.
Second.
Do we have a second? I'm sorry. Oh, we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, the remaining items have been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our last item for individual consideration, HPCA-25-00042 at 1000 Northwest 17th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Jennifer Vogler for certificate of appropriateness to 1, demolish existing garage, elective, 2, construct 2-story garage, elective, 3, replace side porch on house with an addition, elective, 4, remove existing porch steps and handrails, elective, 5, remove window and replace with wood door, elective, 6, construct wood deck, elective, and 7, widen driveway, elective, 8, replace chain link fence, and 9, replace wood fence, elective. So 2 different main components to this project. One is to enclose the existing side porch that you can see in those photos, to create more finished space inside the house. They are leaving that wood detail that is at the ceiling of the porch to kind of still define that interior space. Staff didn't really have any big concerns with the enclosure of the porch, but we did have some considerations in the staff report regarding some of the windows that were proposed. One is, I think, kind of replicating a more ornamental window that's on the third floor of the house. Thought it might be more appropriate with it being an addition in a non-historic portion of the house to go with a more modest, simple window. That proposed window is also a simulated divided light, which I guess it's an addition, but it's not an addition, so we need to think about if that's appropriate. And then on the garage, when the staff reports went out, all we really had on the condition of the garage was photos. The applicant has since sent over a structural engineer's report. Staff did not have time to really evaluate that, but it is attached to your packet in Prime Gov. So just verifying that the garage meets the applicable considerations for demolition of a historic structure. And then on the proposed new garage, it is larger than the historic garage and larger than what the guidelines would support for this property. And then the other item we would note is that this historic garage has very distinctive dormers at the front and back, I'm gonna say. It faces the side street. And in the proposed new garage, those dormers are turned to the two sides. With that being such a kind of character-defining feature of structures of this type, staff felt like that's something that should stay where it is if we're trying to approximate the historic characteristics of the building. So both recommended for continuances, but lots of seemingly fixable considerations to be addressed.
Okay, and the applicant is present.
Hello again, Holly Hunt and Sam Gresham Architects Northwest, or 400 Northwest 23rd Street.
Thank you.
So let's start with the side porch. Yeah, you know, we were in a rush, as you guys know, I always am, to get all these in for the deadline. And we all agree a more simple window there at the enclosed porch is more appropriate. Even the homeowner prefers. So we'll probably come back with just, you know, the three, maybe a triple or a double window of that similar historic size there. But again, in keeping with, we're going to keep all that trim, so it's clear that this was an enclosed porch and it could be, you know, potentially returned to a porch in the future. So hopefully that addresses everything there. We can submit that to staff. The garage, you know, this is an unusual garage. It's a beautiful garage, and I think when you look at my elevation side by side, you can tell we are really paying homage to this garage. We really wanted to replicate the garage. You know, I look at that dormer and I see myself repeating it on the opposite side, and I think I'm celebrating it, and staff sees it as changing historical condition. So I'm great with us keeping the dormers on their historic sides and not having it face the street. I think that that's perfectly fine. You know, every other aspect of our garage that's proposed does follow the kind of proportions of this, but the existing garage is only, and I don't think it was ever, you know, it's very old. I don't know, that slab that's there obviously has no footing. I mean, you'll see when you can dive into the structural report. I think we certainly meet the grounds of 50% more, like the infeasibility to recover and the loss of the historic materials. So with that being said, like, we at least hope to get that demolition approved today. I think that we can continue the proposed and come back with something that is maybe smaller, but I do want to talk about its size, and that naturally when we go from a 1-car to a 2-car, even the 450, I think 5% of the lot is 460. So let's say even if we come back with a minimum of 460 2-car garage, as the staff report says, the wider driveway fits with the guidelines, it's supported. So, you know, yeah, obviously the footprint is going to have to expand to that. Well, we have that existing like storage area. I'm just trying to maintain that. And by reorienting that to the interior side of the yard, you know, we don't increase that street view of the massing too much. And in fact, we're currently got 250 square feet at the main level of, you know, servants' quarters or otherwise storage. We're actually reducing that some in this plan to 220. But yeah, overall, that footprint, just from adding another garage bay, essentially grows the overall structure. But I just want to point out that we're kind of trying to just maintain the storage we have and go to a 2-car garage.
What was the existing footprint and what is it proposed? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it.
500 was the existing footprint, and that allowed 250, basically split in half, 1 car bay,
Right,
one.
and what is it now?
And that had stairs in it to get you upstairs to the apartment, or the second floor, we'll call it, because it doesn't have a kitchen or anything. But then that storage now moves to the back and is 220.
But what
And
is
you-
the total footprint now?
Oh, I'm sorry, it is 6, no.
I mean, she should be able to
Hang
do.
on, it's here, I'm just getting flustered.
She should be able to do 460 plus 250, correct? Because those efficiency
Yes,
rooms are
that's what I'm
treated
trying to
as not the
establish.
garage.
That's
so-
what I'm trying to get at,
So
sorry.
she should be able to do 460 plus 250.
Yes.
So I
So
think
710.
it's 715, I think. The garage is 495 and the storage
Yes.
is 220.
Yeah, so I'm 35
feet.
over the 4/6, the 5% of the lot, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's not that big deal to me.
And so I'm actually, yeah, I tried to keep it minimal and acclimate, like to more approximate the dimensions. So the 10-foot by 22 is kind of the same footprint, but just stretched out a little longer. So I was trying to be sensitive to matching that.
I mean, unless there's an issue that I'm not understanding, I would think we've all agreed that even 450 makes for a pretty tight garage. So, I mean, unless there's something that I'm just missing about it, I'm in favor of flipping the dormers, especially if it presents no
Yeah, I'm happy to
logistical
do that,
problem.
yeah. And if
I
that's something I can
don't know.
just give to staff, because ultimately this height of the building only changes by like 48 inches, and most of that is just kind of reestablishing a good foundation and footprint in this building. So I feel like it's, that the existing house, you'll see those dimensions, is quite tall. And it's also at a higher finished floor elevation than ours at the rear of or at the garage. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, if we can agree on those conditions of approval and I can get that to staff and we feel good about the size, then
Well, I think we need
would
to talk
love
about the
that.
demo.
Yeah,
For, I mean,
also,
you know,
Oh,
think we
sorry,
have
yeah.
a member of staff that would like to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure that.
didn't even see.
I'm little. I just wanted to explain that in the garage, it never says that there was any sort of living quarters back in the Sanborn maps. And by expanding the bottom floor, you would, with this design, you would be expanding an extra 250 square feet on the top floor as well.
but the footprint would stay relevant to that 450 plus 250. I mean, I see what you're saying, that there's no indication, but I mean, if there is just the one bay and there's a pedestrian door, I don't know how we interpret it otherwise.
Without dramatically changing the massing, right? Because if we were going to allow that on the first floor but maintain the existing second floor, then we've got a building that looks totally different.
Did you say there were
than the
stairs
historic.
inside?
Yes.
So, I mean, it can't functionally have ever been meant for a 2-car. I mean, it wasn't a car, let's get real. This was not a garage.
I have a feeling, looking at that door, looking at that roof form, looking at the chimney, that this was a stable, not a garage in the first place. And then it's evolved over time, and once people had cars, they parked their cars in it. But, so I feel like this is a little bit different situation than when we have a typical like 2-car garage plus quarters.
Yeah.
Building type. So I don't know that I'm 100% sold on that, you know, you can take half of the footprint that is currently labeled as storage and add that on to another 450. It seems maybe a stretch to me, just because it's not a typical 2-car, it's not like it's a.
With the guidelines though, I just want to understand like exactly how it would be treated, because what we're looking at right now, I mean, I agree with you, this was definitely not a car garage, but what we're looking at right now is one basically garage door bay and one pedestrian door. So I agree with you that it was never meant to be a garage and that this is like slightly weird and irrelevant as a garage, but also I just don't know how per the guidelines we could interpret it differently given what's there.
So the guidelines say absolutely nothing about getting to add your bonus space back on. They say
Oh.
you get 450.
I thought
That's
the
it.
guidelines
We
indicated
have-
that was an
We have
accessory.
interpreted it that way.
Okay.
When we've had people come in that had a smaller garage that had a workshop or a quarters that was part of the historic footprint of the garage, we've said, okay, you can expand the garage portion to 450 and still have whatever that little extra bonus space was in addition to the 450, so that they don't lose that functional space that has always been part of the structure. There is nothing in the guidelines that says we have to do that. That has been an evolution of staff reports and commission review over the course of many, many years. So there is no requirement that you say, oh, you have X number of square footage of storage space, you are automatically entitled to tack that on to a 450 square foot garage.
But I
If you
would-
all feel like that's the appropriate path for this structure, you are certainly, it's at your discretion to determine what's an appropriate size.
I just thought that was written into the, I mean, I think this is weird because it's not addressed by the guidelines being a carriage house really, but I thought that that was in the guidelines, that we were treating it as an accessory.
I think that's the gist of how it's been interpreted, yes, and I do.
Yeah, the precedent.
That's another reason why, like, I love the idea, like, let's match the dormers to it. We want to go back with something very similar, and even if you look on the site plan, it even narrows slightly from the street view. So I think from the front of the house and from even that side, that thoroughfare, the building structure is not going to look like it's gotten much bigger. It's going to acclimate that exact same massing. So that was the goal.
I have to go in like 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left till we're going to lose quorum, so just.
So sorry.
Hey, I'll shut up.
Well, I think we could, I would feel comfortable administratively approving the enclosure if you're comfortable approving an appropriate window. Is that something you can?
Yes.
Okay.
Approving with a condition that appropriate windows be submitted to staff. Okay, yeah.
I think that at a minimum, what we should do with our next 5 minutes is determine whether we're approving demo of this thing. Right.
We do have one other item that actually needs action.
Okay.
So,
Can I ask a quick question? And I'm reading the Mesta Parks comments, and it says we recommend continuing all items. Are they meaning we recommend continuing all items that staff recommended, or are they?
I interpreted it as all items.
That's staff recommended, I think is how
While the proposed fences may be appropriate, the lack of detail throughout the application suggests a full review at a later date is the most appropriate response. But yeah, I was gonna say, I think they might have met, I don't know, I'm trying to decide what.
there is a fence. We hadn't really had, I don't think, serious concerns about that.
If you're gonna talk, Holly, please step up.
The demo is kind of an issue because like their insurance is like not able to cut. Jennifer, would you like to? This is the homeowner, Jennifer Vogel. Be sure and state your name and address.
My name is Jennifer Vogler. I live across the street from this house, and I have for 25 years. I've lived in Mesta Park for 30 years. We purchased this house last summer because we love and value historic homes and the historic fabric both inside and out of every home that we have touched. We're excited to bring this one back to its full glory. Our insurance company said they're going to cancel us if we don't have this torn down by the end of the summer. And I agree. I think it needs to be before that. There's a group of little boys that play basketball directly behind this. And after visiting with John Joyce, who wrote the report that you all have, it is not a safe structure. And I want it gone as soon as possible. So hopefully you all can approve that part today. And we are willing to work with you and make it a perfect replica of what it is now, or whatever we can do to get a modern 2-car garage and an upstairs, however that shakes out. And we'll do the dormers anyway.
Let me ask so we can get to a point where we can get a vote. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, there being none, commissioners, if you don't have any other questions, do we have any motions for any of these items on number 11 here?
I'm in support of the demo. I've watched this project very actively, and I'm very excited about it. It's
total transformation. It's beautiful, and I agree. I think I have one of those little boys who plays basketball behind, so I agree that it's
Make your motion.
Let's go. Not great. Well, was there one other that y'all needed? Was that it? I mean, are we?
Just the enclosure, but we'll get
Right,
those
but-
window specs to staff. Yeah, with the condition that we get window specs to.
Demolition's got to be separate though, right?
Right.
Okay.
A motion to demolish, and then a motion to approve the, and then we
Okay,
can continue
so
the rest.
regarding HBCA 25-00042, I motion to approve item, so sorry, where's the demo? One.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve demolition. Do we have a second? I'm sorry.
We do have a second.
I'm sorry, we have a second.
Yay.
Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Okay, and
Ooh, I'm sorry. Yes.
that's what we're doing now.
Okay, demolition has been approved.
So regarding HBCA 25-00042, I motion to approve items
3, 4, 5, and 6.
3, 4, 5, and 6 with the agreed upon condition that the applicant will submit an appropriate window selection to staff.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second? We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes.
Okay, and then just to be clear, we're continuing these last couple of items?
Yep.
To 8 and 9?
To
Is that what's left?
June 4th.
Okay. Okay. Regarding HPCA 25-00042, I motion to continue.
Sorry, pour your vote on that last one.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, those items have been approved, and now we've just got a couple more.
Okay, to continue items 2, 7, 8, and 9.
Yep.
With the specific findings noted in the staff report. And I'm sorry, continue that to the June meeting, y'all said?
Yep.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to continue the remaining items. Commissioners, please cast your votes. And then we've got to do 2 and other bit. Okay, the remaining items have been continued. Now let's quickly jump into other business. We've got BOA-15887 at 3008 North Robinson Avenue.
This is an HL overlay home share. Staff has recommended approval. No comments and no members of the public remaining.
Commissioners, we have a
Anybody here to
motion.
speak?
She said no members remaining.
Great. I'll make an approval, a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for BOA 15887.
Okay, we've got a motion to recommend approval. We've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. While that's loading, Katie, tell us about the
Our last
2025
one-
Certified Local Government
Yes, this is our
application.
grant application for the grant funds that no longer exist, possibly. We need authorization for the chair to sign the application, and it'll be forwarded to the mayor and council. We are proposing some travel and training for staff, workshops, and a National Register nomination of the Farmers Market Historic District.
Okay, so we just need a recommendation. Is that just giving?
I'll make a motion to,
Okay.
I recommend making an application for this grant.
We've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please cast your votes. And I will add for the record that BOA 15887 was approved as well, and this item has been approved as well.
So we have no remaining action items. I don't think we have anything to report under City Council, Board of Adjustment, Planning Commission, Councilor. No citizens remain to be heard.
Okay.
For those of you that don't have to run out, I did want to ask briefly about workshops, because we've had several scheduled.
Can I adjourn it so she can
Yes,
go?
yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
We are adjourned.
We are adjourned at 5:13.
Okay. We've had several that were